Phoenix Nights. Chapter 74. Aldous stared at the bottle. All his anger and indignation were instantly thrown away. His voice trembled. This is a black potion. Black potion, true. Spirit potion. Chinray smiled slightly. Master, do you want it? This question was purely nonsense. From Aldous' fanatical eyes, it was clearly, I will fight you if you don't give it to me. Master, I can give it to you, but Master, please promise me one thing first. Chinray slowly handed the bottle over. No need to say anything. I promise you whatever it is. Aldous took the bottle of black potion with a trembling hand. He couldn't believe that the bottle contained the legendary supreme potion. The dark elf's cautious movements were afraid that his hand would shatter it. He immediately placed it on the table, but he was afraid of accidentally knocking it down. He made a safety rack and piled a lot of things around it. Chinray looked at Aldous' abnormal look and snickered secretly. If this master knew that as long as there was enough aura, not only the true series, but even the eternal series, could be obtained, he would probably be so excited that he would release a lightning bolt on himself, and then faint in happiness. After Aldous put away the black potion, he didn't open the bottle stopper. He looked at it obsessively for a while as if the deep black potion was a peerless beauty that could turn all living things upside down. After half an hour, he recovered a little bit and asked, This bottle of potion, where did you get it? Aldous was still a little sober. He didn't ask if Chinray made it himself. As a matter of fact, this apprentice was very incompetent. After learning the basic knowledge of pharmaceutics, he basically couldn't see anyone. On the contrary, the learning progress of the imp was surprising. Do you remember my Grand Master's inheritance test this time? I have already passed half of it. As a reward, the Grand Master controlled me to make this bottle of true spirit potion. When I woke up, the potion had successfully appeared in front of me, but I couldn't remember the formula and technique clearly. Chinray felt that this Grand Master's excuse was getting more and more perfect. Even he couldn't find any loopholes. So that's how it is. Dear Demon God, the great Grand Master's inheritance has finally shown the dawn of pharmaceutics. Aldous was excited again. So, if you can complete this inheritance test, will you get the ability to make black potions? I don't think so. Moreover, the second half of the inheritance is even more dangerous. If one is not careful, one might lose his life. Of course, Chinray wouldn't admit it. The cheapest black potion also cost 10,000 auras. Besides, he didn't want to spend all his energy on this aspect at the moment. Master, what I want you to promise is that if the black potion is known by others in the future, you must say that you developed it yourself. You must never mention me. No! Aldous slammed the table indignantly, and almost jumped up nervously. His ferocious look was shocking. Chinray pointed at the shaking black potion on the table. The dark elf's anger was immediately deflated. He hurriedly held the precious potion with both hands and put on a somewhat comical pose, but his resolute attitude was unquestionable. This is your glory. I will never do such a shameless thing. Master, you have to think carefully. I'm not giving you this potion to be famous, but to let you study it and truly step into the realm of the great Grand Master. Chinray said solemnly. Do you want the secret of the great Grand Master's inheritance to be leaked? I'm just a human, an outsider, and a powerless outsider. If the biggest secret is really leaked, how much trouble will it cause? Can I still stay in the Dark Moon? Aldous was touched. In terms of value, this bottle of black potion was many times more precious than all the potions that Chinray had squandered before. For a potion master, he was absolutely willing to pay any price to exchange for it. However, this human just gave it to me without any conditions except for joking. The Dark Elf Master calmed down and began to analyze seriously. Chinray is right. If the news is leaked, not only the fallen Angel Empire, but the other two empires will also focus on the Dark Moon estate. All parties will fight for Chinray at all costs. With the current strength of the Dark Moon, Princess Jia can't keep him. By then, not only the Dark Moon will lose Chinray, but even the balance maintained by the three empires on the surface may be broken. Therefore, even if I study this bottle, I must do it in an extremely secretive situation. I must not let anyone know before I get any results. Aldous' analysis made Shinrei secretly ashamed. Even he didn't think of many things. It seemed that he underestimated the shock caused by the great Grandmaster to the demon realm. By the way, there's one more thing. Shinrei thought of the strange feeling when he tasted the black potion, including the rule. He told Aldous everything, but the excuse was changed to the vague feeling he got from the great Grandmaster's inheritance. Unlike a half-baked apprentice like Shinrei, Aldous' eyes widened as soon as he heard it. He murmured, "Rhythm, rule." The dark elf only thought that it was the precious experience left by the great Grandmaster's divine thought. He treated it like a treasure, but he didn't expect that someone was just talking about the taste. Seeing Aldous being obsessed, Shinrei knew that he shouldn't disturb him. He instructed the imp at the door and returned to the room. At this time, after getting the news that Eric's, Royce and the Karen family were at daggers drawn, Joseph rushed all the way and finally returned to the Dark Moon City before the sky turned dark. Joseph didn't return to the Dark Moon's mansion. He first went to the arena to visit the injured Erics. Then, accompanied by Royce, he came to the magic store that was ransacked. His face became gloomier. "Sir, this is what happened." Although Royce's tone wasn't agitated, when he mentioned the Karen family, his eyes couldn't hide the anger. "I'm willing to take full responsibility for the magic store. Please punish me, sir." Joseph shook his head. "This is all the fault of that bastard, Alan. I can't blame you. Your injury is fine, right? It's not a big deal, but Eric's injury isn't light. He will need at least half a month to recover. Mikas was not my opponent at first. If he didn't sneak attack and get poisoned by the fire poison, he wouldn't be able to come to the magic store." Royce gritted his teeth. Alan's cheating in the arena was exposed by Aguile. It was already known by the whole city. Rika, who joined the Karen family, was also killed by Eric's in public. However, Aguile's potential is indeed extraordinary. I followed him all the way and wanted to try to recruit him. It just so happened that Mikas was chasing Aguile, so I tried to stop him. However, I didn't expect so many things to happen. Before I killed Mikas, he gave a space bracelet to the guard, Gank. Many soldiers saw it. When Eric's and I went to Alan's residence, Gank was by Alan's side. Those things must be in Alan's hands now." Joseph pondered for a moment and asked, "After this incident, what was the reaction of Princess Royal?" Royce replied truthfully, "Princess Royal naturally wants to see us and the Karen family hostile. On the surface, she sent old Gauss to mediate, but in fact, she was sowing discord." In Royce's heart, since the master had such an ability, he was definitely not just a small secretary. It was likely that Princess Royal was just a tool. And it seems that there should be no other factors in this incident. If it was related to Princess Royal, she would show an indifferent attitude instead of this obvious provocation. Joseph nodded thoughtfully and asked, "By the way, is that Aguile really going to challenge Eric's after a month?" "Yes, Aguile was only the early stage of intermediate demon a month ago. When he defeated Rika, he was already at the later stage of intermediate demon. According to Eric's and my observation, Aguile is likely to be a mutated great demon or a descendant of a fallen royal family. He has some kind of seal on him, and he needs to rely on battle to break the seal and restore his strength. That's why he has the courage to set a challenge for 2 months. Eric's and him have already signed a war contract." "There's such a guy." Joseph looked interested. "According to your opinion, what's the possibility of this person joining us?" "If there's no Eric's, it's almost 100%. Royce said affirmatively. "He still has a small force called the Cloak Gang. It's just that he offended Alan and set a duel date with Eric's, so he can only seek the protection of a third party." Joseph's eyes revealed a murderous intent. "You mean Princess Royal?" Royce nodded. "When Alan sent people to wipe out the Cloak Gang this afternoon, Princess Royal's Imperial Guards appeared in the southeast block of the Cloak Gang, stating that the Cloak Gang has become one of the reserve forces of the Imperial Guards. Alan's men had no choice but to retreat. All signs indicate that Igual has successfully sided with Princess Royal. Joseph frowned, then he heard Royce said, "Sir, don't worry. Actually, this is my idea for Igual. When I saved Igual last night, I proposed to recruit him. Igual is very grateful to me for saving his life, and he is also quite tempted by Sir's proposal, but he insists on fighting with Eric's and will never change. If he wins the duel, he asks to replace Eric's position and take charge of the arena. So before the duel, he will not side with us." I immediately agreed on behalf of Sir and let him first serve Jia to preserve the strength of the Cloak Gang. Please forgive me for overstepping my authority. No, you did a very good job. Joseph had already faintly understood Royce's intention, and a smile of appreciation appeared at the corner of his mouth. If Igual is easily beheaded by Eric's a month later, we won't lose anything. Instead, we can use this to attack Jia. If Igual can really have the power to compete with Eric's a month later, then we will get a fierce general. If I can't return by then, you must remember to try to prevent the two from fighting to the death. No matter which side dies, it is something we don't want to see." Royce bowed. "Understood, sir." The more fierce the battle between Joseph and Kaneda, the better it would be if he had more talents under him. Otherwise, it didn't matter even if Eric's and Igual died. He asked again, "By the way, is the Princess retail store opened by the little princess doing well recently?" Royce had reported this to Joseph early in the morning. He nodded and said, "Yes, especially the demon-fighting chess and princess chess. The Mellon family once spent 50,000 black crystal coins to buy the alchemy work of the ancient Grand Master. It is said that the mystery contained in it is still unsolved. The Grand Master's work." Joseph thought of the bet between Alice and himself during the sky battle, and a faint cold light appeared in his eyes. "I want to know more about the Princess retail store." Royce understood that even if he didn't say it, Joseph could easily understand the intel of the Princess retail store in the Dark Moon now. So, he told him everything. The more Joseph listened, the more solemn his expression became. He narrowed his eyes and fell into contemplation. Royce exclaimed, "Although I'm a layman in business, I admire the little Princess Royal Highness a little now. She can actually run such a weird store into the most famous store in the Dark Moon City." "No." Joseph shook his head. "This should not be the little princess's ability. Otherwise, her store would have long been famous in the Dark Moon. Don't underestimate this inconspicuous business. The wisdom and skills contained in it are beyond imagination. Let's go to the Princess retail store tomorrow and see the situation first." Royce said indignantly, "What about Alan? He is just a useless person who relies on his family's power. Please forgive me, sir. I can't tolerate being stepped on by such a useless person." Joseph knew that Royce was originally the heir of a big family. Although he was deprived of his honor, the pride in his bones was even greater than Eric's. He comforted, "Don't worry. Although I don't want to completely fall out with the Karen family for the time being, I won't let anyone bully me. We still have to win over Alan. Before that, I will give him a little lesson." Royce nodded and didn't say anything. Joseph smiled with satisfaction. He never thought that this arrogant subordinate was deliberately provoking him just now. Shinrei climbed up and saw that Paglia was still safe and sound, after being hit by Aura Blade. He admired in his heart. This guy has sharp eyes and a vicious mouth, but his strength is really unfathomable. If he unlocks the seal and recovers the power of a demon overlord, I wonder what kind of level he will be. "You! Oh right, according to you, you are a pervert! A complete pervert!" The poison dragon looked indignant. "Last night you were so injured that you wanted to commit suicide. Now you are almost recovered. Your strength and speed have increased instead. Also, the secret technique just now is very strange. It can actually hurt me. If you continue to grow like this, it will only take a few years to unify the demon realm." As the poison dragon spoke, he waved his hands in the air. 2 marks with a diameter of 1 meter appeared on the ground behind him, emitting a strange light. You are still called injured? Shinrui glanced at the forehead that the poison dragon pointed at with disdain. He looked at the 2 marks. What are these 2 things? You even forgot the dragon inscription? Peiglio scolded angrily. Ignorant and incompetent guy, but you are so lucky that it makes people jealous. That secret technique is the inheritance of the Grand Master, right? It is indeed amazing, but it is a waste for it to fall into the hands of people like you. Just now you attacked the rebound inscription. Unless you can completely destroy it, otherwise, the stronger the attack, the more powerful the rebound. I have the strength of a great demon king now, so the inscription I engraved can exert the power of a demon king. With your strength, even if the secret technique is powerful, you can't break this inscription. If I didn't stop you, you would have to bear your own secret technique just now. Shinrei shuddered. Only then did he understand why Peiglio wanted to intercept him just now. He immediately became alert. It seems that the result of killing Mikas last night made me a little too complacent. No matter how strong a blade is, there is a limit. I must be cautious. Speaking of which, you haven't learned inscription for a long time. Peiglio pointed to another mark. Do you remember what this is? This is... Shinrei's understanding of inscription remained at the level of rote memorization. In terms of understanding, he couldn't even be considered as a beginner. When he was flipping the inscription knowledge in his memory, a prompt suddenly appeared in his mind. Memory found unknown metadata. Do you want to activate deep analysis? Shinrei was stunned. Deep analysis is actually the expensive skill that I can't understand. 10,000 auras in just half an hour. I still have 110,000 auras now. In order to unlock more mysteries of the super system, I'll give it a try. Activate! As soon as Shinrei confirmed in his consciousness, he felt that his spirit was instantly highly concentrated. He read and analyzed the relevant parts in his memory in a strange way. 10 minutes passed. Peiglio saw that he was still in a daze, so he shook his head. The difficulty of the dragon inscription is really not small. Even for the dragons, it's not easy to master. For this ignorant and incompetent guy, I'm afraid it's more difficult than breaking through to Demon King. It's better to be patient and teach slowly. Forget it, with your wisdom. Before he finished speaking, he heard Shinrei yelled, Peiglio, tell me all the inscription knowledge you know now. Don't ask me why. Quick! Peiglio was stunned, then he reacted immediately. He began to teach while drawing diagrams on the ground. After a while, he just wanted to stop to take a breath, but the human glared at him and urged, Quick! Continue, the faster the better. It's best to finish everything. Since when is this guy so eager to learn? The poison dragon knew that something was wrong, so he didn't care anymore. He said everything he could think of in one breath. He simply gestured the diagrams in the air quickly. Shinrei didn't understand at all. He was just concentrating and memorizing all these things. Soon half an hour passed. He couldn't care too much and activated deep analysis again until the poison dragon finished speaking. Okay, don't disturb me now. Shinrei felt that his brain was like a computer, quickly storing, analyzing, calculating and even deciphering the data that he had memorized. He picked up a branch and drew on the mud floor. Peiglio shook his head at first, but his expression became more and more surprised as time went by. Although the inscription drawn by Shinrei was far from meeting the requirements in terms of strength, the accuracy was getting higher and higher. In the end, there was no difference at all. The time of the second, deep analysis, was finally over. The data that had been analyzed, or it should be said that the data that had been deciphered formed something like a brand. It was deeply imprinted in Shinrei's mind. He could use it freely as if he was proficient in knowledge. Of course, this was only a part of the knowledge that the poison dragon said, but the rest was still imprinted in his memory. Next time, he could continue to carry out deep analysis, to decipher more mysteries. Your 2 inscriptions, one is rebound and the other is conceal. As for what I drew, this represents flame, This represents explosion, then this string represents vicious and teleport, right? Chinray cast a questioning look at Paglio. Paglio nodded subconsciously. He suddenly took 2 steps forward and looked at Chinray up and down with a strange gaze as if he wanted to swallow him. Chinray was horrified. Could this poison dragon's lair be in Brokeback Mountain? I now have more reason to suspect that you are a dragon instead of a damn human. Paglio gritted his teeth and said, Even a dragon can't master the dragon inscription so quickly. Paglio was good at dragon inscription. He had nearly 10,000 years of knowledge and experience in this field. He was also famous among the dragons in the demon realm. Unexpectedly, this human, who was a rookie who was scratching his head in the beginning, had really mastered the basics in the blink of an eye. It wasn't a rote memorization like before, but a real understanding. Grand Master. It must be the inheritance of the Grand Master. Paglio's reaction was still very fast. He glared at Chinray fiercely. It seems that Grand Master Wukong must be a giant dragon. Or rather, the ancestor of the dragons in the legend. Why does the ancestor favor such a shameless human? I, Sir Paglio, such a powerful, handsome, excellent and talented dragon is actually ignored. You're jealous again. This isn't the virtue of a dragon. Chinray curled his lips disdainfully, but he was really happy deep down in his heart. It turns out that this is the mystery of deep analysis. The 20,000 auras are definitely worth it. I actually solved the most troublesome dragon inscription. In this way, I will be able to learn anything in the future. Isn't I a Superman? However, I don't know what the unknown metadata means. There should still be certain restrictions in the object of deep analysis. The super system was like a huge treasure. Chinray had now gotten the key, but he was only exploring at the most superficial level. The rest would definitely be worth looking forward to. Hearing that Paglio was still complaining about Monkey King because he couldn't eat the grapes, Chinray shook his head. What ancestor of the dragons? It's more like a monkey. Moreover, it's one of the 4 famous monkey brands in the primordial mall, the spiritual stone monkey. At this moment, Chinray suddenly felt a strong dizziness in his head. The world seemed to be spinning. The spirit that was highly concentrated during the deep analysis actually showed an unprecedented weakness. His whole body was shaky and unstable. He was about to fall down. Paglio noticed that his situation wasn't right. He quickly held him and slowly let him sit on the grass. Chinray sat on the ground and rested for a while. He finally felt a little better. He felt that the spirit that had always been abundant was greatly consumed. It was like a flowing spring suddenly dried up. No wonder he almost couldn't support it. It seemed that deep analysis wasn't a skill that could be used casually. It had a very high requirement for spirit. He used it twice in a row just now, and it actually exhausted his spirit. As soon as he thought of this, he immediately exchanged a bottle of recovery potion that cost 2,000 auras and drank it. However, the effect of this white potion, which was equivalent to a Grand Master's preparation, was actually worse than expected. Coupled with the characteristics of astral form, the recovery speed of spirit was only slightly faster. This shouldn't be due to the effect of the potion. It was probably the sequelae of deep analysis. The poison dragon originally had a lot of questions. Seeing Chinray's state, he didn't force him and let him ride the wyvern back to rest first. In Chinray's state, he couldn't use the ordinary, analytical eyes anymore. Fortunately, Kegu was already very familiar with this kind of round trip, so he didn't need Chinray's order at all. He directly flapped his wings and flew back to the palace's laboratory. When Chinray returned to his room, he felt unprecedentedly tired and fell asleep. Chapter 76. When he woke up, it was already noon of the next day. Chinray felt that his spirit had recovered about 30%, and he drank a bottle of spirit recovery potion that he exchanged. Although he figured out the mystery of deep analysis last night, he also paid a certain price for rushing for results. Spirit was not only the power to cast magic, but it was also the source of will and perception. In the case of insufficient spirit, forcing himself to train would be counterproductive, so Chenrui planned to start training after he fully recovered. He once experimented with entering the ordinary training ground with time rule, but the time rule didn't work for the recovery of spirit in this situation, so he had to exit again. He wasted 2,000 auras in vain. It seemed that he could only rely on potions and sleep to recover. Deep analysis was indeed powerful, but this skill must be used cautiously in the future. It was estimated that it would take another 2 days for his spirit to fully recover. In terms of time, he could rely on the training grounds rule to supplement, but now it seemed that he still needed a lot of auras. At that time, he was a little impulsive when he drank the black potion, but facing the temptation of permanently increasing strength after drinking the potion, it was already considered good to be able to keep 120,000 auras. Including the true spirit potion that he exchanged with Aldas and the 20,000 auras consumed by deep analysis last night, he only had 90,000 auras left. Auras were like money, they came and went quickly. However, in the process of coming and going, it was his own strength that grew, so there was nothing to be regretful about. The black potion, eternal body and eternal mind that he had in exchange were estimated at 200,000 auras. The 8-fold gravity, 10-fold time rule, or even 100-fold time rule required more auras. He got 160,000 black crystal coins from Silva last time, and now there were about 80,000 left. However, there shouldn't be much aura left after the old dwarf plundered the aura materials on the market a while ago. However, Chenrui had an idea for a long time, otherwise he wouldn't have exchanged for the black potion rashly. That was Mountain Shilong. Mountain Shilongs, waste ores, were unusable waste items for ordinary people. For Chenrui, it was an urgently needed source of aura, and there was a lot of it. From the information, this kind of waste ores appeared 400 years ago. It was likely to be produced by some special pollution of the underground demonic beasts. In other words, Mountain Shilong had accumulated hundreds of years of waste ores. Even if a piece could only provide 2-digit aura and was far inferior to magic materials in terms of quality, it was a terrifying data in terms of quantity. Danger and opportunity always went hand in hand. Chenrui decided to go to Mountain Shilong before his duel with Eric's. However, before that, he had to get a map. Otherwise, he would be flying around like a headless fly. Even if he had wyverns, it would be a waste of time. Just as Chenrui was thinking, the imp knocked on the door. "Master, are you there?" Under normal circumstances, Sli would not rashly disturb him. Chenrui got up and opened the door. "What's the matter, Sli?" "Her Royal Highness invites you to the meeting hall." Chenrui knew that Jiao would not interrupt his inheritance trial for no reason. There must be something important. Besides, his spirit had not recovered yet, so it was not suitable for him to train. Therefore, he immediately rushed to the meeting hall. In the meeting hall, other than Jia, there was also a beautiful figure that Chenrui had not seen for a long time. Including the time spent in the training ground, it had been a few months. To be honest, he still missed her a little, especially when he was breaking through at the critical moment of life and death. This figure was one of the reasons that stimulated his outburst. "Chenrui!" A familiar voice rang out, tinged with a hint of surprise. The familiar purple hair, the familiar red eyes, but the blush that flashed across his usually bold face made him a little unfamiliar. "Athena!" Chenrui was also very happy. "You have completely adapted to the power of higher demon? However, I can only barely reach the early stage of higher demon now. It will be more and more difficult in the future." Athena nodded vigorously. She looked at him for a moment, and the excitement on her face suddenly turned into worry. "What's wrong with you? Are you not feeling well? Did you take any medication?" Due to the sequelae of deep analysis, Chenrui's current mental state was very bad. Athena could see it at a glance. "Yes, there is a small situation, but it's not a big deal. I will be fine after a few days of rest." Feeling Athena's undisguised concern, Chenrui's heart was warm. Then he heard Jia also said, don't force yourself too much in terms of the mission. Also, the cloak gang you mentioned last time has become one of the reserve forces of the Imperial Guards. I understand, Princess Royal. Chenrui heard that the first half of Jia's sentence was a vague concern. She was talking about the inheritance trial. Although it seemed very cold in front of Athena, it was still quite useful in his heart. The second half of the sentence showed Jia's attitude on the matter of Iguile. She had undoubtedly agreed with Chenrui's trust in Iguile. However, if it was just about Athena and the cloak gang, Jia wouldn't specifically summon him to the council hall. He waited for her to continue. Tomorrow morning is the time for the quarterly meeting. You have to come. Regular meeting? I seem to have heard from Royce that it's rare to have 2 days off, but I still have to work overtime. I don't know if I can get employee benefits. Initially, I didn't want you to attend this regular meeting, but Joseph and several family representatives specifically want to see you, the new secretary. It's not good to refuse. This kind of request is reasonable, but Joseph won't speak without reason. At the regular meeting, you have to be wary of him using your human identity to make a fuss. If you really can't do it, you can resign from your position as the secretary. Chenrui finally understood. It turned out to be a smiling tiger playing tricks behind the scenes. He definitely didn't have any good intentions. It seemed that he had to be careful in tomorrow's regular meeting. However, as Jia said, if he really couldn't do it, he would quit the position of the secretary. He would be firm if he had no desires. He wouldn't give Joseph a chance to make a fuss. With Jia's trust in him, he would still do what he had to do. Jia saw that he nodded and understood. She knew that Chenrui already knew what to do, so she didn't say much. She put a space bracelet on the table. This is the superb vine stone that Joseph brought back from the Red Spirit estate. Alice told me that she had promised to give you her 6 pieces, so the 100 pieces inside and this space bracelet are all yours. 100 pieces. Not 66 pieces? Chenrui was pleasantly surprised. He almost imitated the old dwarf and said, Princess Royal's generosity is comparable to the demon realm's 2 moons. However, he knew that Jia didn't like to listen to this kind of empty talk, so he simply said, Thank you, Your Highness. The space bracelet was of little value to Chenrui, who had a storage warehouse. Besides, he had already seized Silva's space ring. Not to mention that after entering the Mizar state, the storage warehouse's capacity had expanded a lot. Now he had more space but less things. However, storage space equipment was considered rare equipment in the demon realm. This was also the beautiful boss's kind intentions, so of course he had to accept it. Jia nodded slightly. She looked at Chenrui and Athena. Suddenly she lowered her eyes and looked at the document in her hand. She said without raising her head, Athena just finished her training, so she hasn't seen Alice yet. You guys go to the princess retail store. I believe Alice will be very happy to see you guys. Athena also wanted to see Alice, so she left the palace with Chenrui. Chenrui, didn't Princess Royal assign you a mission for 2 months? How is it going? There's still half left. Chenrui thought of something. By the way, Athena, have you been to Mountain Shilong? In the first year I came to the Dark Moon, I went to that area to train. Athena nodded. But at that time, the bandits hadn't started to disturb the mine yet. So, if I go by Wyvern, how long will it take to get there? Chenrui saw that there were few people nearby, so he asked in a low voice. Do you want to train long-distance beast flying? Athena's eyes lit up. Chenrui naturally wouldn't tell the truth. He followed her guess and asked, Actually, this is just an assumption. Can you answer me? Athena blinked and replied, Although the Wyvern's flying ability is strong, there is a limit. You must choose a place to rest and feed the Wyvern on the way. Then, you must choose a safe place to sleep at night. If you go alone, even if you have a map, it may take about 6 days. So if you decide to do this kind of training, you can save at least half the time if you have an experienced guide. After all, Athena wasn't that kind of old fox. The urgent expression on her pretty face had clearly written the words, I'm the guide. Chinray smiled slightly, but he was calculating in his heart, 6 days. The round-trip trip is 12 days. I have to fight Eric's in less than a month. Time is really tight. Do I really have to bring this guide along? As they were talking, the two had arrived at the Princess retail store. They saw customers coming out one after another, and they kept looking back. It seemed that something happened in the store. Chinray and Athena walked in and saw that there were only the succubus and imp left on the first floor. Cagalli, who was responsible for security, was gone. A group of people were blocking the stairs on the second floor and confronting each other. The two hurried forward. Athena! A greeting from the entrance of the second floor made Athena frown. Her good mood suddenly became bad. When everyone heard it, they made way for them. The person who spoke was the person that Athena hated the most, the sheriff and guard general, Alan Caron. It turns out to be Athena and our Dark Moon's new secretary, Sir Chinray. Another voice with a hidden knife in his smile also sounded. It also made Chinray feel uncomfortable, but he still bowed slightly politely. Sir Joseph. It turned out that the two sides of the confrontation were Joseph and Alan's group. Joseph was still smiling, but Royce and the Sasha behind him showed a strong hostility toward Alan's group. Although Alan had more subordinates, none of them were higher demon. They seemed to be cowering under the pressure of that imposing manner. It felt like they were trying to act tough. It was mainly because the Caron family's strongest higher demon, Sardu, and Eric's were both injured, and Mikas was dead. Alan couldn't come up with a powerhouse that could support the situation at the moment, so he could only rely on numbers to scare people. Sir Secretary, you seem to be unwell? Joseph noticed that Chinray was in low spirits, so he asked with concern. Chinray knew that this guy was a weasel paying a visit to a chicken with bad intentions, so he replied, Sir, I'm sorry. My physique has been poor since I was young. I was seriously ill recently, so I didn't come out much. Joseph glanced at Athena and smiled meaningfully. So that's the case. No wonder even the genius girl of our great demon clan has hardly shown up recently. As soon as this sentence was said, Chinray only felt that two fiery eyes fell on his face. It was Alan. Chinray was already used to this kind of gaze, so he completely ignored it. However, Joseph's words transferred Alan's anger to Chinray. It was indeed sinister. Athena, your training is finally over? The two groups of people were separated, and Alice's surprised voice sounded. Now everyone was here. Chapter 77. Alan didn't know if Alice's words were intentional or unintentional, but it made him understand that Athena didn't go out because of her training. As expected, his face was slightly relieved, and he continued to stare at Joseph fiercely. When Athena saw her long-lost friend Alice, she finally smiled. Alice! Chinray is here too! Come here quickly! In front of Joseph and Alan, Alice pulled Chinray and Athena to the second floor with one hand in each hand. Cagalli, Kia and others were here. There were also a few guests, one of whom was injured. The guests seemed to be afraid to leave because the stairs were blocked by Joseph and Alan. Alice was checking the injured person's condition just now, so she didn't see Athena and Chinray immediately. When Chinray asked Alice, he found out that the reason for the dispute between Joseph and Alan was because of the Grand Master's work, Puzzle. Of course, if there was no good show the night before yesterday, the two sides who were originally in cahoots would not have such a tense relationship. The birthday of the Empire's regent, Obsidian, was approaching. Alan wanted to buy the Puzzle as a congratulatory gift and presented it to Prince Obsidian through his father in the capital. It just so happened that Joseph also came to the Princess retail store. After learning of Alan's intention, he offered to buy the Puzzle at double the price. Alan originally hated Reyes and Eric's who killed Mikas and came to his door. Now that Joseph returned to the Dark Moon, not only did he not take the initiative to reconcile, but he also provocatively wanted to compete for the Puzzle. Alan couldn't help but be furious. If it weren't for his lack of strength, he would have almost made a move. The injured guest was injured by Alan's lackeys because he had touched Alan's bad luck. Joseph, are you very rich? You should keep that money and continue to fight with your brother, Kaneda. Alan's greatest hostility returned to Joseph. I'll pay triple the price. This burr puzzle, I'm definitely getting it. The original price of the burr puzzle was 50,000 black crystal coins. Triple the price was 150,000. It was a huge sum of money. The rule of the Devil Realm was that the highest bidder would win. Alice didn't bother to greet Shinrei and Athena. Her big eyes were filled with the shapes of black crystal coins. She immediately asked, This burr puzzle. Joseph, do you still want to increase the price? 200,000. When Joseph heard Alan said Kaneda's name bluntly, a cold light flashed in his eyes. As Aaron was about to speak, the lich on the side whispered, Sir, we don't have enough money. Seeing Joseph smile, Alan was even more furious. He sneered and took out a few things. I don't have enough money, but these magic equipment are of the best quality. If the little princess is willing, you can convert them into black crystal coins. I still have a lot of such equipment, and I can sell them to your highness cheaply. Royce, who was behind Joseph, let out a low roar when he saw the magic equipment. A murderous aura surged from his body. Joseph raised his eyebrows. He knew that these were definitely the items that the magic shop had lost. Alan's actions were like a slap in the face. Both sides glared at each other. However, Joseph didn't get angry. He turned around and patted Royce's shoulder. Royce took a deep breath and calmed down again. Shinrei secretly praised Royce's acting skills. Alice hesitated and couldn't make up her mind. She secretly looked at Shinrei, wanting to consult his opinion. Shinrei couldn't give an opinion in front of so many people. He just looked at a plaque in the middle of the second floor. On it was the word engraved according to Shinrei's intention, integrity. Alice was very clever. She followed his gaze and immediately understood. She still frowned and said nothing. Obviously, she was struggling fiercely in her heart. Finally, she said, I don't want these things. Aaron's face changed, then he heard Alice continued. The purpose of our princess retail store is integrity. This purpose is for all customers. Aaron came earlier than Joseph today, so the burr puzzle is sold to Aaron at the original price of 50,000 black crystal coins. However, Aaron, your subordinate hurt my customer, so he must compensate for his treatment costs. Do you have any opinion on this? Absolutely no opinion. Aaron was overjoyed. He quickly asked someone to give the injured a handful of black crystal coins. Thank you so much. The Princess Retail Store is really the best store in the city. It is much better than some guys' stores. Alice nodded and asked Cagali and Kia to count Aaron's 50,000 black crystal coins. Then, she undid the magic protection and handed the beautifully packaged burr puzzle to Aaron. Aaron carefully opened the box and looked at the hardcover version of the burr puzzle as if he got a treasure. He quickly put it into the space ring. Seeing Aaron's appearance, Alice remembered the few Grandmaster works that were piled up randomly in her room. She secretly laughed. Speaking of which, she lost at least 150,000 black crystal coins this time. It was painful just thinking about it. Joseph ignored Aaron's provocative eyes and just looked at the word integrity. Although the momentary communication between Alice and Shinrei was obscure, it couldn't be hidden from him. After taking a deep look at Shinrei, Joseph bowed slightly to Alice and left the Princess Retail Store with Royce and the Sasha. When Aaron saw Joseph leave, he was naturally arrogant. He thanked Alice happily and left. After the two left, Shinrei came over and whispered a few words to Alice. Alice immediately stepped forward to comfort the injured person. This was a member of a small family. In fact, he was only slightly injured, so he didn't need so much money. Seeing the little princess personally inquired, he looked flattered. Alice smiled and said, Everyone, I'm very sorry about today. However, I believe everyone has seen that the Princess Retail Store pays particular attention to the word integrity. No matter who comes to us in the future, they will feel the meaning of this word. Please rest assured when you shop. Little Princess Royal Highness is really amazing. Alice's words and smile infected everyone. A nobleman said excitedly, "I want to tell everyone about this. The reputation of the Princess Retail Store will be known throughout the dark moon." After these customers finished shopping and left, the integrity little princess who was smiling just now suddenly changed her expression. She leaped into the air and actually rode on Chenrei's back. She hugged his neck. 150,000 black crystal coins! 150,000! Sob, sob. Why, Chenrei? You must tell me. Otherwise, this princess will fight with you today. Chenrei was almost suffocated by the hug. It seemed that under the stimulation of money, the little lowly with the miser halo had almost caught up to Mikas's level. When Athena and Kia saw it, they quickly took action. After much persuasion, they finally pulled the little miser off Chenrei's back. Chenrei took a few deep breaths. Seeing the little lowly's angry look, he shook his head. "Do you remember what I said when I asked you to engrave the plaque?" Alice thought for a while and replied, "It seems to be integrity trumps all strategies. If you want the Princess Retail Store to flourish for a long time and even open more chain stores, you must remember this sentence." Chenrei saw that Alice still didn't understand. "Let me tell you a story. There used to be a great demon king named Yan Zhao Wang. He once spent 1,000,000 black crystal coins to buy a precious incubus beast." When Chenrei said the demon realm's adaptation of Yan Zhao Wang spent a lot of money to buy a horse's bones, Kia and Athena still didn't fully understand it, but the smart Alice had already understood the meaning. There was another meaning that Chenrei didn't say in front of Kia and Kaguli. The magic store's stolen goods were hot stuff. Leaving it in Aaron's hands was more conducive to the strategy of driving the tiger to swallow the wolf. Today, Aaron deliberately took it out to show off. In fact, it had worsened the relationship between the two sides. However, why did Joseph compete with Aaron for the Grand Master's work? Isn't reconciliation the most needed at the moment? "I knew that Brother Chenrei is powerful." After the little lowly figured it out, her face changed quickly. She blinked her cute big eyes and instantly changed from a bitter hatred to an expression of worship. "Why don't we go to the Blue Lake for a picnic now?" "No! I'm not in good health these 2 days, so I can't travel far." Chenrei shook his head like a rattled drum. "Are you kidding me? Still going for a picnic?" He must have prepared a sneak attack in some kind of damned reference book. "I see." Alice showed a disappointed expression. "I'm bored in this store every day. It's so uncomfortable." "Athena, let's go for a walk in the city with the three of us." "Okay." Athena agreed immediately. When Chenrei heard that it was just a walk outside, he couldn't refuse. Alice rolled her eyes. "You wait for us downstairs. Also, Kia and Kaguli go down too. I want to talk to Athena alone." After the three went downstairs, Alice's eyes fell on Athena's plump chest. She subconsciously compared it with her own, and she obviously felt a huge pressure. "Are we good friends?" Athena didn't understand the little lowly's thoughts. She nodded and said, "Of course, Alice is my best friend." "What about Chenrei?" Athena's face was slightly hot. "He is also a good friend." The blush that flashed across Athena's face didn't hide from the little lowly who was mischievous. The little lowly's body shook, and a domineering aura exuded. "Athena, there are some things that I won't give in even if we are good friends." "What things?" Athena showed a puzzled look. "For example, that." Alice's aura was deflated. She lowered her head, and her 2 index fingers gently pointed together. She said hesitantly, "There is one person." "No. There is one thing that you also like to eat, and I also like to eat it." "This is simple," Athena said without hesitation. "Cut it open with a knife. We can just split it in half." Alice seemed to be preoccupied. When she heard this sentence, her eyes flashed. "Cut it open?" "Achoo!" Chenrei, who was downstairs, sneezed inexplicably. Seeing Kia frowning, he smiled apologetically. "What if I can't cut it open?" The little lowly thought for a while and continued to beat around the bush. "Actually, I don't know if I really like to eat it." Anyway, this thing makes me feel a little strange. Maybe I want to eat it a little. I don't understand what you're talking about. Athena thought for a while and replied, However, if it's really a good thing that can't be cut open, we will each take a bite until it's finished. We are all good friends. Shouldn't we share good things? Really? 1 bite per person. The little lowly's big eyes lit up as if she had solved a key problem. She jumped up happily. Although I don't know yet, but Athena, you are really my best friend. You have always been? The unclear Athena still didn't understand why Alice was hesitating and happy at the same time. Let's go. Alice regained her strong vitality in a blink of an eye. She took Athena's hand and skipped downstairs. Chapter 78. Joseph walked slowly on the road with a smile on his face, but his eyes were full of gloominess. He had been like this ever since he came out of the princess retail store. When passing through an empty alley, Joseph's footsteps suddenly stopped and he said resolutely, That human must die. When Royce heard it, he asked in surprise, Sir, that human is just an incompetent person. Why? Joseph said with a dignified look, I saw a lot of things in the princess room just now. Not only are there goods, but there are also some hidden mysteries. These things are also amazing innovations even in the entire demon realm. In other words, it is likely to come from outside the demon realm. The human from the human world is the biggest doubt. Also, I bid with Alan just now not to teach him a lesson, but to raise the price, then buy the burr puzzle and give it to him. I can show goodwill to the little princess and Alan at the same time. I know Alan's character very well. As long as you show him enough respect, reconciliation is not a difficult thing. Joseph's face became more and more gloomy. I didn't expect that human actually saw through my intentions and gave the little princess a hint without batting an eyelid, so the little princess would do that. In this way, the relationship between the Karen family and us is even worse. If it is not resolved as soon as possible, it may be used by Kaneda to make a fuss. Is that human really so powerful? He can actually influence the little princess' decision? Royce looked like he came to a sudden realization. He had a new understanding of the master in his heart. To be able to be affirmed by a character like Joseph, it is indeed a great talent. If I guess correctly, the person behind the princess retail store is Chenrue. The princess retail store can have today's prosperity all because of this human, so Alice listens to him. With just one look, she actually understood all the intentions. Speaking of this, Joseph's eyes were inexplicably murderous. Since this human appeared in the Dark Moon City, a series of changes have taken place. Whether it is the Master Challenge or the Sky Battle and the Princess Retail Store, not to mention his amazing talent, even if he is useless and only brings good luck to Princess Royal's side, I will try to get rid of him. If Chenrue heard this now, what would he think? In fact, he didn't completely see through Joseph's intention. It was purely a coincidence. However, Joseph's wisdom was indeed incomparable to Alan. He had concluded that the Princess Retail Store was planned by him behind the scenes. He even linked the Master Challenge with the Sky Battle. There was even the so-called luck theory factor. "Milord, leave this to me." Reyes thought for a moment, and he immediately volunteered. Although Joseph was intelligent, he would never have thought that this capable subordinate had become a servant of that human. This request for battle was nothing more than a thief crying thief, and he wanted to secretly collude with the enemy. "Royce, I know you're still holding a grudge against the magic shop and want to make up for it. I've already said that you're not responsible for this matter. The cause is that bastard Alan." Joseph glanced at Vasasha, who was expressionless to Reyes, and smiled slightly. "As for Chenrue, I already have a plan. In fact, it's too easy to assassinate this human. I need his death to be more valuable. Princess Royal is currently watching the fun between me and Alan very leisurely. Since this is the case, let her be troubled for a while." "Understood." Reyes bowed slightly. A faint light flashed in his lowered eyes. The next morning, the quarterly meeting began. There were many people attending the regular meeting. Chenrue only knew Joseph and Alan. The rest, such as the Seifel family's patriarch, Old Ford, the Mellon family's patriarch, Karl, and the representatives of other small and medium-sized families, he only saw them in that information. Chunrei quietly activated analytical eyes and looked at everyone's strength. Female boss Jia, race, pride royal family. Strength assessment, unable to judge. Butler Old Gauss, race, lich. Strength assessment, D. Smiling Tiger Joseph, race, Great Demon. Strength assessment, C. Trash Talk Allen, race, Great Demon. Strength assessment, E. Seifel family's patriarch, Ford, race, Great Demon. Strength assessment, D. Mellon family's patriarch, Karl, race, Great Demon. Strength assessment, D. Now that Chunrei's own strength had reached D level, when he used analytical eyes, Joseph's strength assessment was no longer unable to judge, but it was displayed as C level. Jia's strength was still unable to judge. Chunrei was already quite proficient in using analytical eyes. He knew that this skill could analyze the strength of a level higher than himself. If it exceeded the level, it would be displayed as unable to judge. The person with the highest strength at the scene was Jia, followed by Joseph, who should have reached the Demon King level. The weakest were Alan and the representatives of several small families. As Jia said, Alan really couldn't be killed at the moment. Otherwise, where could he find a sheriff with such a weak strength and brain? Jia's analysis of the Pride royal family made Chunrei a little curious. He remembered that Athena once mentioned that the demon realm currently had 3 royal empires. They were the fallen angel empire representing pride, the bloody empire representing greed, and the shadow empire representing lust. During the heyday of the demon realm, there were 7 empires. After thousands of years, only these 3 royal families were left. The other 4 royal families either submitted to the demon realm or disappeared. Pride, greed, lust, it sounds familiar. It's just that Jia is only 23 years old. I can't judge her strength, but she is at least a great demon king. How does she train? Does she also have a super system? Also, Old Gauss is a lich. His normal upper limit should be intermediate demon, which is E level. Now it is displayed as D level. It seems that he is another guy with a mutated bloodline. As Chunrei was observing, a concerned voice sounded. Mr. Secretary, I heard that you were unwell some time ago. Are you better now? This voice didn't comfort Chunrei because it was the smiling tiger, Joseph, who spoke. He just asked this question yesterday, and he deliberately asked again today. Chunrei was afraid that he had ulterior motives. Sir Joseph, thank you for your concern. Chunrei got up and saluted. Actually, it's all my fault that my physique is too poor. I've been sick for a long time, and I haven't recovered yet. Alan next to him showed undisguised disdain. Weak human. How long has it been since he came to the demon realm, and he can't stand to get sick. It's best if he dies of illness. Be sure to take care of your body. Joseph nodded meaningfully. Otherwise, how can Princess Royal rest assured to give you more important duties in the future? Actually, I've always been optimistic about you. Optimistic your ass. Chunrei muttered secretly. Who doesn't know you? You call me brother, but you're hiding a knife behind my back. At this time, Jia said, Okay, let's cut the crap. Let's get started. The quarterly regular meeting was mainly to summarize the current quarter's situation and make a rough arrangement for the next quarter's work. The previous summary was nothing more than some important matters. The main basis was the estate log that Chunrei was in charge of. Jia finished the summary. When she was asking everyone for arrangements for the next quarter's affairs, Joseph took the lead to get up and said, I lost 100 vine stones to the little princess in the sky battle last time. Because it takes time to collect them, plus I have some personal matters in the Red Spirit estate, I went out for a long time last month. After attending this regular meeting, I also want to ask Princess Royal Highness for at least 2 months' leave. After I deal with some affairs, I will return to the Dark Moon to serve. I hope your Highness can forgive me. Jia nodded slightly. In fact, everyone knew that asking for leave was just a formality. Princess Royal Highness couldn't wait for the financial officer to go out for as long as possible. It would be best if he didn't come back. Thank you, Your Highness. Please rest assured that before I ask for leave, I will arrange all the work at hand properly. Joseph smiled and said some work arrangements. Then, he looked at Chenrei, who was recording, and said, When I returned to the Dark Moon this time, I only knew that Princess Royal Highness has an additional secretary. It is the human Chenrei who performed outstandingly in the Master Challenge and the Sky Battle. In fact, I have always thought that Chenrei is very talented. Princess Royal's judgment of people is really extraordinary. As Joseph said this, almost everyone's eyes fell on this little secretary. Chenrei knew that this guy definitely didn't have good intentions, so he was secretly vigilant. Even a simple-minded guy like Alan understood that Joseph praised Chenrei like this. There must be a follow-up. Sure enough, Joseph shook his head and said, Please forgive my rudeness, Your Highness. In fact, in my opinion, the secretary is a waste of talent. Chenrei is Master Aldus's apprentice. He is proficient in pharmaceutics, and he is bold and careful. I believe those who watch the Master Challenge and the Sky Battle have a deep understanding. I intend to recommend Chenrei to be responsible for more important work. What do you think, Princess Royal? Jia originally expected that Joseph would make a fuss about Chenrei. It was likely to be to suppress or exclude him, but she didn't expect it to be a recommendation. She frowned and said, What job do you want to recommend Chenrei to be responsible for? Joseph smiled and said, The mining problem has been troubling the Dark Moon estate for many years. As the financial officer in charge, I want to recommend him as a mining officer to go to Mountain Shillong to show his talents and manage the mining industry. What do you think, Your Highness? Mountain Shillong! Mining officer! A cold light flashed in Jia's eyes. She suddenly understood Joseph's sinister intention. Not only Jia, but everyone present understood the purpose of Joseph's kind recommendation. The mine in Mountain Shillong was the largest source of resources and wealth in the Dark Moon. However, the underground demonic beasts rampaged in the past few hundred years. It had taken the lives of many miners. The previous mining officer was said to have disappeared in the mine, and even his corpse couldn't be found. Now there were bandits harassing from time to time. The danger level was extremely high. Not to mention a powerless human like Chenrei. Even if a higher demon went there, it was likely that he wouldn't be able to return. Joseph clearly wanted to put the human to death. Sure enough, the human secretary showed a weird expression and was silent for a while. As soon as Alan heard this proposal, he didn't care about his recent bad relationship with Joseph and was the first to agree. The Mellon family immediately expressed their support for Joseph's opinion. Those families that sided with Joseph echoed one after another. Many people looked at Chenrei with a gloating expression as if he was already a corpse. No one knew the real reason for Chenrei's weird expression. Mountain Shillong was exactly where he wanted to go. Joseph, this guy, could he be like Alice who knows the knockoff version of mind reading? At this time, Old Ford of the Seifel family said, The mining industry in Mountain Shillong has always been an important source of income for our Dark Moon. However, there have been frequent disasters in recent years. There are bandits on the outside and demonic beasts on the inside. It is almost impossible to mine. This human has no strength. I think Sir Joseph is the best candidate. If you can go in person, you can definitely solve the hidden danger and let the Dark Moon rejuvenate. Finance and economy are the foundation of an estate. I'm the person in charge of this work. If I'm demoted to the mine, who will bear the responsibility if something happens to the finance? There was a hint of threat in Joseph's words. He sneered. Old Ford, your son Tim, was the previous mining officer. I'm also sorry for his disappearance, but it doesn't mean that His Excellency Sir Secretary, who is valued by Princess Royal, will be the same. Are you questioning Princess Royal's judgment? Or are you taking revenge on me for letting Tim go to the mine? You know, I'm doing this for the sake of the entire Dark Moon's development. Old Ford trembled with anger. The Seifel family was one of the oldest families in the Dark Moon. They had always been incompatible with Joseph, an outsider. 2 years ago, old Ford's eldest son, Tim, was appointed as the mining officer by Joseph. As a result, he disappeared in the mine and there was no news of him until now. He was confirmed to be dead, so he hated Joseph to the core. Several other small families who supported Jia also expressed their opposition. The council hall became noisy for a while. Jia's cold eyes shot straight as if she wanted to penetrate Joseph's heart. Unfortunately, her gaze couldn't kill, otherwise Joseph's fake smile would have become a sieve. Joseph ignored Jia's anger. He just looked at Chen Rui and showed his habitual smile. Once this human dies, the princess retail store's decline will happen sooner or later. Jia will also lose an important support in business. Her morale will definitely be greatly affected. I'm willing to go to the mine. The noisy voice suddenly quieted down and fell on the human who stood up. Chapter 79. Chen Rui did this after serious consideration. Since he was going to the mine anyway, he might as well be straightforward. Last night, he received a secret report from Royce. The Princess Retail Store's incident made Joseph wary of him. If he stayed in the Dark Moon, it would be more inconvenient for him to move. Although Mountain Shilong was dangerous, it was not as good as the Silent Night wetland. With his higher demon strength, self-protection should be no problem. Not to mention that his real purpose was the aura of the large number of waste ores. As for the mining officer. Anyway, the mine hadn't changed for so many years, so he didn't need to produce any results in a short time. As for Eric's war contract, he could use the wyvern to return secretly. With this misplaced time difference, no one would doubt that Aguil and Chen Rui were the same person. Chen Rui! Jia suddenly stood up, but Joseph spoke first. Okay. You are indeed the talent that Princess Royal Highness and I value. If you need anything, just tell me. I will fully support you. Jia frowned and said, Chen Rui, your time in the Dark Moon is too short. You don't understand the danger of the mine, and your strength is too weak. I don't want to make the mine's situation worse. I'm not afraid of danger. I'm willing to serve Royal Highness. Chen Rui had made up his mind to go to the mine to collect aura. His fanatical gaze fell on Jia's beautiful face. He looked impassioned, but he changed the word, Royal Highness, to aura, in his heart. At this moment, a few bystanders could see that the reason why the new secretary was so reckless was because of his admiration for the eldest Princess Beauty. However, although her Royal Highness was beautiful, she was also famous for being cold and ruthless. How could she be moved by a mere human? Some people had a richer imagination. They thought that Joseph had been pleasing Princess Royal before. After learning that Jia had such an admiring secretary, he was extremely jealous. So, while weakening Princess Royal's strength, he ruthlessly sent this potential rival to death. Princess Royal, since Chen Rui is willing to go, why not give him a chance? Joseph glanced at Chen Rui in surprise and said, In order to show my sincerity in recommending, if Chen Rui can manage the hidden dangers of Mountain Shilong for many years, I'm willing to recommend him to be the sheriff again. The sheriff had always been the part-time general of the Dark Moon Garrison, Alan. Hearing Joseph's words, Alan was furious, and he stared at Joseph fiercely. Joseph acted as if he didn't see it. This proposal reminded everyone of the big event that had been going on in the city for the past few days. Sure enough, the sheriff and the financial officer were in a deadlock. In fact, it was Alan who was in the wrong. Who asked him to cheat in the arena? However, Alan's loss was also the greatest. A higher demon had died. Of course, no one thought that Chen Rui could come back alive to be the sheriff. In the eyes of most people, this human was already a dead man. Since that's the case, let's sign a document as proof. Chen Rui's words turned everyone's attention back to him. Sir Joseph also said just now, just let me know if I need anything. I've never been to Mountain Shilong, so I need a magic map of the entire Dark Moon, a magic compass, a ring of illumination, 10 fluorescent stones. Chen Rui said a dozen things in one breath, and he finally looked at Joseph embarrassedly. That's probably it. I don't know if Sir is willing to keep your promise? These things seemed to be prepared for going to Mountain Shillong, but there were magic items and magic materials in them. Not only could he collect a small interest before going to Mountain Shillong, but he could also discuss Joseph a little. If nothing happened to the magic store, these were just a drop in the bucket. Now these things were robbed by Alan. Of course, Sir Sheriff also, righteously, took the blame for the magic materials. Joseph was stunned. This human actually took his polite words seriously. However, the promise had already been made in front of so many people, and the other party had agreed to go to the mine. These little things naturally didn't matter. It was as if they were buying his life. That's no problem. I'll send someone to the master's lab later. I guarantee that it's the highest quality equipment and items. Joseph smiled even more. As for the document, it's easier. Sir will draft it personally. Princess Royal and everyone are witnesses. Chinrui wrote the document in triplicate. The two of them signed on it. Joseph took his copy and smiled. Then, we'll ask our mining officer to prepare well and rush to Mountain Shillong as soon as possible. Chinrui nodded. Jia stared at the document in her hand faintly. She didn't speak. She still had the eternal icy expression. On the road outside the palace, Alan gritted his teeth and said to Joseph, "Why did you bet my sheriff? Was your sincerity last night just a pretense?" It turned out that Joseph had a secret meeting with Alan last night. Under Joseph's superb diplomatic means, Alan, who originally hated him, reconciled with him. Even if those magic equipment were used to compensate for Mika's accidental death, both parties also reached an important agreement. They continued to pretend to be at odds on the surface to numb Jia's group. However, Alan's anger today wasn't a fake cooperation, but it came from the bottom of his heart. Obviously, Joseph used the sheriff's position as a bet to arouse his real anger. Joseph looked like he had everything under control. He asked calmly, "If I don't do this, how can we continue to act the good show of us being enemies? Don't you want to see that human die step by step?" Alan's anger subsided a little, then Joseph said again, "Or do you really think that human can come back alive from Mountain Shillong? The demonic beasts and bandits there are just a pretense in your words." Alan also reacted at this time. "Yes, even if he really doesn't die, we can send someone to kill him. Just say that he was killed by demonic beasts or bandits. My friend, you finally understand." Joseph smiled slightly. "Now, all the items in the magic store have been given to you. I don't have the things that the human mentioned just now, so it's up to you." "Humph, I don't have the map compass anyway, but I don't have the fluorescent stones. You find a way yourself." Although they seemed to have reconciled on the surface, the thorn in Alan's heart was never removed. After saying that, he ignored Joseph and strode away. Looking at Alan's back, the dissatisfaction and contempt in Joseph's eyes flashed, but he didn't speak in the end. In the council hall, Chinrui was left alone. Jia kept staring at him, and the invisible pressure made Chinrui very uncomfortable. After a long time, the Ice Princess only said 3 words. "Why?" "Because I really want to go to Mountain Shillong. This is the truth." Chinrui replied honestly. "The truth? The sheriff's position is indeed very important to the Dark Moon, but why do you want to bet your life? In the face of absolute power, wisdom is almost useless, so you have no chance of winning this time. You should be very clear about the danger of Mountain Shillong. If you fail, you will die accidentally." Chinrui understood that wisdom was indeed just a fleeting cloud in the face of absolute power. Then, when necessary, he would use strength to overwhelm strength. "Don't worry, I will be back. Actually, what I want to say is that this is part of the Grand Master's test. This excuse is too clumsy." Jia shook her head. "I don't understand. I really don't understand. Perhaps this can be understood as a means for you to impress me?" "Understand? It's reasoning. Right." Chinrui's expression was stagnant. "I obviously answered honestly, but she doesn't believe me. Since the last mistake in the garden, the beautiful misunderstanding has been continuing. However, as a healthy male, a normal man, it was inevitable that he would have some thoughts about the beautiful female boss. Besides, it felt really good to see Jia's rare smile or hear a plain concern. However, under the powerful, reasoning bloodline of the Lucifer family, the role of his admirer was played passively most of the time. I said that I'm doing it for myself. I can't help it if you don't believe me. Chenrei sighed, but he still didn't express his admiration. Jia shook her head. If I lose my life, what can I do even if I impress you? Can I really impress you? Chenrei's heart moved, and he asked out of curiosity. In all honesty, I definitely didn't use any schemes at this time. Is there any practical significance in being impressed or not? Jia sighed. Actually, with your wisdom, you should know that it's impossible for us. You have gained my trust, but it can only stop here. Maybe I should adopt old Gauss's proposal to retain your talent with the ambiguous temptation of beauty, but I don't intend to do that. To be honest, you give me a very special feeling. I haven't relived this feeling for a long time. I even thought that I had forgotten how to feel it. This feeling is like... Speaking of this, Jia's originally expressionless face had a slight fluctuation. It trembled slightly, and finally, it returned to being emotionless. This feeling, it's probably a friend, Chenrei added. I didn't expect old Gauss to have such a proposal. That's interesting. Unfortunately, the boss didn't accept it. Although there was a little regret in his heart, it was more fulfilling and touching. He knew that Athena had a little affection for him, but it was probably just a little. Alice was more mischievous and curious. As for Jia, he wouldn't be narcissistic enough to think that all the beauties in the demon realm would like him inexplicably. It was quite surprising that she could be so honest. This should be the first time since she became the Lord. Perhaps it was pity for a dying person, or perhaps it was just to make him give up, but honesty is honesty. Friend? I don't know, maybe. Jia's eyes gradually cooled down. I'm not only the Lord of the Dark Moon, but also the direct descendant of the Lord of Midnight Sunday. I have a great responsibility. This word is a luxury for me, but it's bad luck for you. I don't want to discuss this anymore. You just signed the document willfully. Other than escaping from the Dark Moon, the only way to go is to go to the mine. Have you thought it through? I've thought it through. Chenrei nodded affirmatively. Go to the mine. Then, no matter what method you use, you must persist for half a year. After half a year, even if there's no achievement, I can use my privilege to transfer you back again. Joseph can't say anything even if he has the document in his hand. Chenrei calculated that if it was half a year, he could go to the Silent Night wetland. However, the prerequisite was to pass Eric's first and further improve his strength. Half a year should be no problem. I do need to go out for the Grand Master's inheritance. It's just nice that I can solve it on the way. I also want to take the wyvern with me. By the way, I can also ask Igual to escort me secretly. After all, he and I have a symbiotic contract. If I die, he will die too. The symbiotic contract reminded Jia, and she asked. The wyvern is no problem, but Igual will fight Eric's in about a month. Aren't you afraid that he will lose? Your lives are intertwined. That's right, they are indeed connected. Chenrei smiled slightly. His smile was full of confidence. He won't lose. Jia stared at him for a moment, and didn't ask more about Igual. She took off a ring from her hand and waved her hand. It slowly flew over and floated in front of Chenrei. Chapter 80. This ring was quaint, dark, and dull, but Chenrei keenly felt the faint power contained in it. Stretch out your left hand, cut your finger, and then relax. Don't resist. Jia's voice sounded. Chenrei knew that Jia wouldn't harm him, so he did as she said. Jia also cut her finger, but her blood didn't drip on the ground. Instead, it floated in the air like red pearls. Jia's fingers trembled quickly in a strange rhythm. The blood beads gradually formed a special mark, driving the ring to fly toward Chenrei's left hand and into the ring finger. The blood of the two mixed together, and the blood mark changed into a new symbol, gradually submerging into the ring. Chenrui only felt a burning heat coming from the ring finger, as if Jia's blood had melted into his body along the ring. The feeling was very wonderful. It took a long time for it to slowly dissipate. The name of this ring is Dark Will. It can resist all kinds of spirit power intrusion. It can also use the random teleportation skill once a day, but the distance and space are limited. I'll give it to you. The ring has been enchanted with the inherited blood mark. No one can use it except you. Dark Will was taken off from Jia's hand, so it must not be an ordinary item. The random teleportation skill that can be used once a day is very powerful. It is definitely a weapon to escape at a critical moment. However, the finger wearing this ring is a bit weird. It is actually the ring finger. I don't know if the finger wearing the ring in the demon realm has any special meaning, but the ring finger is definitely not the finger of the wedding ring. Otherwise, Jia wouldn't put it on this finger for me. Chenrui was touched and blurted out, "Princess Royal, this should be your important treasure. I can't take it. Value determines the meaning of existence. You may think of it as an exchange of value." Jia replied calmly. This sentence was very unreasonable, but Chenrui did not get angry. He smiled and said, "I understand. I will maintain my own value and let it continue to exist." Jia nodded. "Very well. It's not convenient to bring maids to the mine for the time being. I originally promised you Kia a month later, but we'll talk about it when you come back safely. As long as you're alive, I can guarantee that your wish will be fulfilled. Even Kia's devouring physique won't be a problem." Was this considered welfare? The owner's memory was really good. "Princess Royal, I really have no intentions towards Kia. Please take back your order." Chenrui shook his head with a wry smile. To be honest, the demoness was indeed very seductive, but the feeling she gave off was more of lust than love. Most importantly, he wasn't willing at all. The most important thing for a man and a woman to be in love with each other was their mutual affection. Even if there was any intimacy, it would be natural. Chenrui admitted that he liked beautiful women, but he also had the most basic principle. If he relied on some kind of power or other things to forcibly possess a woman, he would absolutely despise it. Even if Kia didn't have the terrifying, devouring physique, it would still be the same. Jia took a deep look at him, and her voice was still cold. "Don't underestimate Kia. If Mountain Shilong is your first test, then Kia is the second. As for why, we'll talk about it after you come back from Mountain Shilong half a year later." Chenrui just realized that Jia's maid wasn't simple, but as Jia said, everything had to wait until the end of the mine's test. Chenrui bowed. "Then I'll go back and prepare first. I'll leave tomorrow." Jia nodded, opened the documents on the desktop, and ignored him. Not even a word of farewell. Maybe at least, unfortunately, he didn't hear it even when he pricked up his ears. The Sir Mining Officer had to leave the council hall resentfully. "Come back alive." After Chenrui left, the low voice that had been suppressed sounded. He still didn't look up, but the coldness in his voice had melted a lot. This feeling had nothing to do with any value or existence. Unfortunately, someone couldn't hear it anymore. Back in the lab, Joseph had already sent someone to deliver the promised things. It seemed that the efficiency was quite high. It was probably because he didn't want to give me an excuse to delay time. Several magic materials were actually used to convert auras. In the space bracelet that Jia gave, there were also 100 pieces of the highest quality vine stones. The medium quality vine stones provided between 100 and 150 auras. The superb vine stones sent by Joseph weren't mixed with water, so the aura was about 4 times that of the medium quality. After converting the vine stones and other materials, Chenrui's remaining 90,000 auras rose to 140,000. Although it was a pity to consume these rare materials, strength was more important than anything else. Not to mention that after the Galaxy Garden's pivotal seed matured tomorrow, he could slowly use the Galaxy Garden's own aura. After the aura conversion was completed, it was already nightfall. Chenrui hurriedly had his dinner, rode the wyvern and flew toward the blue lake. Sure enough, the poison dragon was sitting at the same place playing solitaire. He knew that Chunrei's spirit was severely damaged last time, so he didn't sneak attack or set up inscriptions to tease him. "How is it? Has your spirit recovered?" "Not yet, but I have to leave for a while." Chunrei lay on the grass next to the poison dragon and stretched comfortably. He picked up a grass root and put it in his mouth, then he told Chunrei about Mountain Shillong. Peiglio frowned. "Are you bewitched by that Princess Royal? It's less than a month before the battle with Eric's, and you still want to go to Mountain Shillong? Actually, I think the little girl who knocked you out that day is not bad. She's quite proactive, but her figure is too unpromising." Dragons don't need friends, especially poison dragons. Peiglio regained some of the arrogance of dragons. Have you seen God having friends? They only need respect and fear. They don't need those unnecessary love and understanding. Maybe it was like this in the past. Chunrei asked. "So, what about now?" "Now, according to your words, I'm a dragon under the eaves, so I can't help but lower my head." Peiglio looked helpless. Chunrei knew that the poison dragon was a stubborn guy, so he didn't expose him. "Why don't I trick a beauty to be your companion this time? My aesthetic point of view is different from a low-level person like you." Peiglio glanced at him with contempt. "Although your scythe witches, succubi, little girls look good, unfortunately, they don't have the inner qualities I want. The woman I like needs to have beautiful and hard scales, sharp and clean teeth, and a tall and plump body." "Slow down. You're talking about a female dragon, not a woman." Chunrei was stunned by Peiglio's heavy taste. He almost had a psychological shadow against the opposite sex. "What do you know?" Peiglio grinned and gave him a disdainful look. "Shallow human. These venoms are for you. Take them just in case. Don't think about the jade pearl again. Even your Athena, with her current poison resistance, she can at least ride a wyvern. As for you, it's simply a waste. As far as I know, there are many types of underground demonic beasts. Some have even reached the Demon King level, or higher. My seal hasn't been lifted yet. If there's a situation, remember to escape first." "All right, Peiglio, when did you become so wordy?" Chunrei shook his swollen head. "Don't worry, I haven't gotten the treasure of the Silent Night wetland yet. How can I die so easily?" Although he said that, Chunrei still felt the concern behind his stubbornness. He had felt this faint warmth from an iceberg before. Greedy guy. If it weren't for Sir Peiglio's life being linked with yours. Before Peiglio finished speaking, Chunrei had already ridden the wyvern and soared into the sky. "Humph. You escaped so fast. You actually said that I'm wordy." Peiglio watched Chunrei disappear into the distance, then he lay down. He bit a grass like a human and closed his eyes. Chapter 81. The next morning, Chunrei, who was in a daze, was awakened by Slee's knocking on the door. "Master, Her Royal Highness Little Princess and Madame Athena are here." Chunrei quickly put on his clothes. When he saw Athena and Alice outside the door, he was taken aback. Athena was fully dressed in leather armor, wearing a space bracelet, and carrying her usual great sword on her back. She looked like she was about to go on a long journey. Alice's big eyes were red and swollen. It was obvious that she had cried. "Come in and sit down. What's wrong with you guys?" Chunrei asked in surprise. Athena walked forward and handed him a leather letter. She said, "This is your appointment letter as the mining officer. Princess Royal has agreed to my request. I'll go to Mountain Shillong with you." "My sister is so annoying," Alice said depressingly. "I had a big fight with her, but she still doesn't allow me to go with you guys." "You all know about the mining officer?" Chunrei scratched his head. His purpose was Aura. It would definitely be inconvenient for Athena to follow him. As for the cloak gang, he had already made arrangements. The members only knew that the leader went out to train secretly in order to fight Eric's. The big and small affairs were left to Jessie and Dee Dee. "It was spread in the city yesterday afternoon." Alice nodded. I know from my sister that this is all Joseph's doing. He must want to take revenge for the sky battle. Chinray shook his head. Joseph's revenge is not only about the sky battle. However, even Royce wasn't clear about the situation at the mine. He just preliminarily analyzed that the bandits must be related to the Red Spirit estate. Joseph, this bastard! Athena clenched her fists angrily. And Aaron, they all want to kill Chinray. Chinray comforted. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I have a friend who will protect me secretly. Athena, you don't have to go with me. Just stay with Alice in the Dark Moon City. No, that place is too dangerous. I have to go with you. Athena's attitude was very firm. I've already decided. Whoever wants to stop me will have to step over my dead body. These are the exact words I said to the eldest princess. Chinray was shocked. Looking at the unswerving determination in those ruby-like eyes, he felt a certain string in his heart being plucked. Alice also spoke. Mountain Shillong isn't like other places. It has been harmed by underground demonic beasts for hundreds of years, and it's impossible to mine smoothly. There are also bandits nearby. It's one of the most dangerous areas in the Dark Moon. A few years ago, the previous mining officer, Tim, personally led a team to investigate the mine. As a result, more than a dozen people went missing, and even their bodies were not found. That's why you must let Athena accompany you. Otherwise, I will be even more worried. Alice's red eyes and serious expression made Chinray's heart warm up. He gently touched her head. This action was natural. Alice was stunned. Her face blushed, but she didn't struggle. She seemed to enjoy it. Chinray was stunned after he made the action. Slee, who was on the side, was even more shocked. There was another burst of strong worship. Athena didn't have any special reaction. She just looked solemn and stared at his eyes closely. It made Chinray feel a strong pressure that had nothing to do with strength. What is this called? Burden? Concern? Perhaps it would be more accurate to use the word fetter. Chinray suddenly thought of the name of an old song. With you along the way, and took a deep breath. Athena, when can you leave? This sentence made Athena's serious eyes melt into joy and eagerness instantly. Any time. Chinray nodded. Well, let's leave in a while. I'll get you some antidote. Let's ride the wyvern. Alice proposed to ride the wyvern last time. Her eyes lit up when she heard the words. Is the antidote developed? Chinray was afraid that there would be more problems, so he quickly explained. It's just a temporary antidote. Only higher demon can use it. When the new antidote is developed, I will take you to ride the wyvern. Otherwise, you should work harder and become a higher demon as soon as possible. Forget it, let's wait for your new antidote. Alice said dejectedly. In terms of training, little Loli had always been proud of laziness. The awakening of the black flame was all based on talent, and it had nothing to do with hard work. Soon, Athena and Chinray came to the wyvern's nest that was temporarily built outside the laboratory. Mengda and Keiga had already put on the simple flying saddle. Slee tearfully sent his master, and one of his future mistresses, at least the imp thought so, onto the wyvern. Aldous, who had been staying in the secret room to study the black potion, suddenly rushed out. Without saying anything, he gave a bunch of bottles and jars to Chinray. Chinray looked at the labels and knew that they were the strongest buff potions and poisons in the laboratory. The dark elf looked at Chinray deeply. Don't forget, you haven't finished what you promised me. Chinray knew that Aldous was talking about his sister. However, the dark elf wasn't talking about his sister now. It was a kind of promise that he must come back alive. Chinray nodded. Aldous only said that and hurried back to the laboratory without looking back. Even Alice saw it. Smelly master, why are you running so fast? A man with fragile feelings, are you afraid that others will see your tears? You two must be safe. Little Loli waved to Chinray and Athena with red eyes. Chinray, if you can come back alive, I can consider eloping with Athena with you. Chinray took a deep breath. She is clearly cursing me not to come back. The wyvern flapped its wings and rose higher and higher. Looking at Alice and Slee's figure that was getting smaller and smaller below, Chenrui waved his hand gently. His eyes stayed at the palace's council hall for a moment, then he urged Mingda to fly forward and finally disappeared from Alice's sight. Athena had always had a wish to become a dragon knight. Now that she could travel with Chenrui, her wish was fulfilled, so she was in a good mood. Chenrui had fully recovered his spirit power that was consumed by deep analysis. Through the communication between the wyvern and the analytical eyes, coupled with Athena's rich experience in controlling beasts, the first test drive was very successful. The northeast of the Dark Moon Estate was the Red Spirit Estate, the southeast was the Blue Lava Estate, and the west was the most dangerous terrain with many mountains. After passing through the Shillong mountain range, the west was Town Leia, which was the border with the Shadow Empire. Originally, Town Leia was two fortresses that confronted each other. It had a long history and belonged to the Fallen Angel Empire and the Shadow Empire respectively. About 2,000 years ago, when the Fallen Angel Emperor, Sakya, Lucifer, was in power, he once helped and benefited the Shadow Empire. The two countries signed a friendship agreement and lived in harmony for thousands of years. As a symbol of friendship, the fortresses of the two countries were dismantled and merged into Town Leia, which was shared by the two countries. Jia once sent a caravan to the west to enter the Shadow Empire through Town Leia. However, thieves also appeared in the west, and they lost everything several times. In addition to errands, ineffective suppression, the Dark Moon could only trade with the Red Spirit or trade with the outside world through the Red Spirit Estate. The economic lifeline had always been controlled by the Red Spirit Estate. With this speed, we can reach Mountain Shillong in about 2.5 days. The wind in the air was very strong, so Athena said loudly. Where are we camping at night? It was naturally impossible to have a hotel for such a wild march, so they could only sleep in the open. Athena had rich experience in controlling beasts and going out. There is still a long way ahead. Try not to overdraft the wyvern's physical strength. We will rest once on the way and feed the wyvern. Then, we will rush to the black rainforest to rest before dark. Okay. Chenrui knew himself well. It was indeed a lot easier to travel with Athena. If he was alone, even with the magic map, he was afraid that it would take a lot of time. When the night fell, the two arrived at the black rainforest as scheduled. Chenrui remembered that when he first met Alice, the poisonous grass and flowers that he was fed came from this place. The black rainforest was a standard forest area in the demon realm. It had a large area and was rich in herbs. The quality of the herbs was much higher than other places, but it was also full of various dangerous animals and plants. Athena took Chenrui to a leeward hillside with ease. The two wyverns rested beside the big tree on the hillside, which could also serve as a warning. There was a stream not far from the hillside, so it was convenient to get water. Tonight we will rest on this hillside. Alice and I also stayed here last time. It's safer. Athena took down the big sword on her back and sat down on a stone. Athena. What? Thank you, Chenrui said sincerely. Mountain Shillong was also dangerous for Athena, but she didn't hesitate and took the initiative to accompany him. We're friends. You don't have to say anything unnecessary. Athena shook her head and turned her face to the side. It wasn't the first time that the two went out together, but Athena suddenly felt an inexplicable tension. When she thought that she might be alone with Chenrui for a long time in the future, her heart beat faster. This kind of situation had never happened before. I know, Chenrui scratched his head, but I still want to thank you. As soon as he finished his words, the big sword was unsheathed without any warning and blocked in front of Chenrui. He was shocked. I'm just saying thank you. Why did you attack me? Athena suddenly got up and carried the big sword. She walked toward the stream without looking back and left a sentence. Okay. You're a man. Why are you being so wishy-washy? I'm going to find the prey. How would he know that she actually didn't want him to see her blush? Athena returned to normal. After returning to the hillside with the two prey, she was surprised to see the tent set up by Chenrui. What kind of tent is this? It's my first time seeing it. Chenrei smiled and said, "This is called the mountain tent. I made it a few days ago with the help of Slee. I was just making it for fun, but I didn't expect to use it so soon." In fact, these were originally some equipment that Chenrei prepared in advance when he planned to go to the Silent Night wetland. It just came in handy. "This tent is good. It's convenient to put it away." Athena had rich experience in surviving in the wild. She saw the advantages of this tent at a glance. She put the clean prey next to the fire. "Is this also the work in the Grand Master's memory?" "It's just a replica. It's a lot worse than the real thing," Chenrei said vaguely, took the prey and took out the barbecue tools. "Right, where's your tent?" "I don't need it. I'm used to it." Athena shook her head. "It's already dark. I'll keep watch later. You rest early after eating the barbecue. We'll set off early tomorrow morning." Chenrei was stunned. "What is this? Let the woman keep watch while the man hides in the tent to rest? This tent is very big. It can sleep 2 people. As soon as Chenrei said that, he realized that something was wrong and quickly changed his words. "I mean, we take turns to keep watch. One person keeps watch at night so that both of us can rest." Athena's face was slightly red. Fortunately, it was not clear under the light of the fire. She shook her head and said, "No need. The last time Alice and I came here, it was like this. I'm now a higher demon. It's not safe here. It may be dangerous. You're not strong enough. Let me do it." A higher demon doesn't need to rest? How could Chenrei let Athena work so hard alone? Besides, his current strength was not under her. Even if he lacked experience, he had enough vigilance and self-protection. He shook his head vigorously. "I'm not Alice. Did you forget that I have the ability to control animals? I can let Mingda and Kega take turns to assist me. Their senses are sharper than mine. If you insist on keeping watch all night, then I won't sleep either. I'll accompany you like this." Athena saw that his attitude was so firm. She only felt an indescribable comfort in her heart. She didn't insist. Considering that the second half of the night in the jungle was more dangerous, she chose to rest for the first half of the night. Chapter 82. Athena looked at the long bag that Chenrei took out and asked curiously, "What is this?" "This is called a sleeping bag. It's made of mink fur. It's very warm. You'll know when you try it later." And Athena suddenly thought of something, and her face was a little red again. "Is this the only one? I only had time to make one. This is for you. I have a blanket." Chenrei smiled and handed the roasted meat to her. Athena took the roasted meat and calmed down. After chatting for a while, she entered the tent to rest. The warm sleeping bag and the good habits of the wild made her fall asleep quickly. The sword was still with her in the sleeping bag. Despite riding the wyvern for a day, Chenrei was no longer an ordinary human. He didn't feel too tired. He activated analytical eyes and expanded his perception to alert the nearby situation. Suddenly, his perception noticed the movement in the jungle. The 2 sensitive wyverns also noticed something. They raised their heads and looked down, making an uneasy hiss. Athena was originally in a semi-dormant state of alert. The wyvern's hiss woke her up suddenly. She immediately jumped up and opened the tent. "Chenrei, there's a situation!" Chenrei was about to check it out, but he didn't expect Athena to react so quickly, so he had to give up. The 2 wyverns expressed the same meaning. "Danger, a lot, a lot!" Chenrei keenly heard the hiss in the jungle getting closer and closer. To be on the safe side, he put away the tent. Athena just extinguished the fire and heard Chenrei's translation of the wyvern's hiss. She suddenly remembered a rumor and exclaimed, "Quick, ride the wyvern and go into the air!" Chenrei didn't dare to neglect. He quickly rode the wyvern and rose into the air with Athena. At this time, the rustling sound had become as heavy as the beating of a drum. Below, black things were moving rapidly towards them like a tide, mixed with all kinds of low roars. "Go higher!" Athena shouted, and the 2 controlled the wyvern to continue to rise. Shinrei's eyesight was quite amazing at this time. He could see clearly that the large tide-like thing below was actually thousands of demonic beasts. There were all kinds of demonic beasts, and many of them were even at the upper and lower levels of the food chain. However, their current movements were surprisingly consistent, which was to run desperately. In addition to the demonic beasts on the ground, there were also a large group of bats and birds flying outward in the air. Fortunately, under Athena's reminder, the wyvern was high enough and did not clash with these flying demonic beasts. However, these demonic beasts were busy running. Even if they found the wyvern, they didn't dare to stop. Soon, the demonic beasts crossed the hill and continued to run outward. If it weren't for Athena's early detection, then the two of them would be in a dangerous situation now. Although the strength of these demonic beasts was not particularly strong, their numbers were too terrifying, and they were endless. If they fought recklessly, there was an 80% to 90% chance that they would die. Shinrei asked in surprise, "Why is this happening?" "This is the Black Rainforest's beast tide. All the demonic beasts in the forest will flee outward, and after a while, they will slowly return." Athena also had a look of horror on her face. Rumor has it that such a beast tide will appear in the Black Rainforest every few hundred years, and the reason has not been found yet. Even the best demonic beast hunter doesn't dare to approach the forest during the beast tide. I didn't expect to encounter it. Shinrei nodded with a bitter smile. He actually won the big prize, that only appears once in a few hundred years. It seemed that he was really lucky this time. After a wave of black tide passed, another wave followed. It was as if all the demonic beasts in the forest had run out. Shinrei could feel the panic and anxiety of these creatures from the analysis, but because the amount of data was too large and the speed was too fast, he couldn't distinguish clearly at the moment. He had an idea and asked Athena, "Can you catch a demonic beast? I want to try using the beast-taming skill to see why they are like this." Originally, he could do it himself, but it was inconvenient to expose himself in front of Athena, so he made such a request. Athena didn't think much. She rode Kegu and flew down. After circling a few times, there was a big demonic beast in her hand. It looked like a mole, but it actually had a pair of wings and sharp claws. Similarly, this mole was quite frightened. Shinrei comforted it for a while and let Athena feed it something. Then it calmed down a little, but this demonic beast's intelligence was not too high. It kept repeating two words. "Devil fruit! Run! Devil fruit?" Shinrei only felt that it was a little familiar, as if he had heard it in a certain cartoon. He was suddenly interested, but unfortunately the mole could provide too little information. To his surprise, when Athena heard the name, devil fruit, she suddenly showed an extremely shocked look. "Shinrei! Can't you ask me more clearly? Or else, I'll go and catch another one." It seemed that Athena was quite sensitive to the devil fruit. She threw the mole, and rode the wyvern down again. The mole flapped its wings and followed the fleeing team in horror. Athena caught several demonic beasts in succession, but these demonic beasts knew even less. They only knew that a powerful ghost dragon was driving them away. If they didn't escape, they would become food in the mouth of the ghost dragon. Combining these scenes, Shinrei analyzed that the devil fruit in the depths of the jungle was about to mature. A ghost dragon wanted to eat the fruit, so it drove all these demonic beasts out. This was probably the reason for the beast tide in the Black Rainforest every few hundred years. However, Shinrei was somewhat puzzled. Since the ghost dragon is so powerful, why does it drive away other demonic beasts? Is it worried that it will be eaten by other demonic beasts? Or is it trying to stop outsiders from snatching the fruit? After listening to Shinrei's analysis, Athena thought for a moment and said, "Shinrei, the devil fruit is very important to me. I must get it. I'm going to explore the jungle now. You stay here. Don't go down before the beast tide completely disappears. If there's any danger, just escape with the wyvern." Wait. Shinrei also wanted to see. Maybe it was a fruit that could provide a lot of aura. Seeing that she wanted to take the risk alone, he quickly said, "Let's go together." No! Athena shook her head and said, although I don't know what kind of dragons the ghost dragon is, judging from the fact that it can create this kind of beast tide, its power must be quite powerful. I just want to try my luck. It's too dangerous for you. Athena, Mountain Shillong is also dangerous. Why do you want to accompany me? Don't worry, I won't drag you down. I have the beast taming skill. If I really feel dangerous, I'll pick you up at a safer place, okay? Seeing that Athena was still hesitating, Chunrei simply asked, are we partners? Athena was shocked and met Chunrei's gaze. Under the cold moonlight, this gaze looked particularly spirited. Athena suddenly lost her shyness. Instead, there was more warmth and confidence. She took a deep breath and nodded. Let's go. The two controlled the wyvern, lowered the height, and carefully moved in the opposite direction of the beast tide. Chunrei learned from Athena that the devil fruit was a very rare fruit. It matured once every few hundred years and was highly poisonous. However, it had an extraordinary significance for demons. As everyone knew, although demons were powerful, their potential was far less than that of humans. Except for the best of the royal family, the rest of the demons' room for improvement was greatly limited. For example, most centaurs lingered at the level of intermediate demon all their lives and couldn't advance. If Great Demon didn't have a mutated bloodline, there was basically no hope to break through the upper limit of higher demon. Even for a Great Demon with a mutated bloodline like Athena, it only increased the probability of breaking through the limit to a certain extent. The difficulty was also quite high. In addition to increasing strength, the most important thing about the devil fruit was that it could greatly increase the potential of demons, increasing the possibility of breaking through the bottlenecks several times. There was also a small chance to obtain additional special abilities. The premise was that they must survive the poison of the fruit. The stronger the strength, the stronger the toxicity and effect of the fruit. For demons, the devil fruit was equivalent to a priceless treasure to break through their own limits. No wonder Athena was so moved. Even for the royal family, in addition to the potential, the increase in strength and the additional special ability were also quite tempting. The woods were getting denser, and it was no longer suitable for the wyverns to fly. Fortunately, the beast tide was nearing its end. Chunrei and Athena landed on the ground and led the two wyverns forward carefully. At this moment, a low roar came from a distance. The voice contained boundless violence and fierceness. Mengda and Kega paused at the same time with a horrified look in their eyes. They didn't dare to take another step no matter what. Chunrei thought for a while and didn't force the two wyverns to move forward. He left them in place and comforted them for a while. Then, he and Athena continued to move forward in the direction of the sound. Athena's original intention was to let Chunrei stay, but she couldn't resist the human's insistence, so she had to go together. Since most of the nearby demonic beasts had escaped to the periphery of the jungle, they didn't encounter any danger along the way. The two gradually approached the source of the sound. However, the strange thing was that after exploring for a while, Chunrei and Athena returned to the original place. I remember the sound should be in front. Why is it like this? Athena looked confused. Chunrei and Athena had the same impression, but he had an extra feeling compared to Athena. It was a familiar and strange feeling. That's right. This seems to be Chunrei. Athena was shocked when she saw Chunrei walked straight into a big tree behind the shrubs and disappeared. Half of Chunrei's body appeared from the tree again. Athena, this way! Athena walked forward in surprise and touched the tree. It really wasn't a real thing, and the shrubs in front were real. There was a fake in the real. No wonder they couldn't find the right path after walking for a long time, but how did Chunrei find it? It seemed that agreeing to come with him was the right choice. After Athena walked into the big tree, she felt that the scene in front of her hadn't changed, but when Chunrei walked in just now, she couldn't see him from the outside. Athena pulled out her great sword and walked in front to continue exploring the way. Suddenly, she heard Chunrei whisper, "Don't move!" Chunrei's face was very solemn, and there was a faint excitement in his eyes because a newly acquired knowledge in his mind made him discover the mystery of this area. Dragon inscription. This was the role of dragon inscription. Chapter 83. If it weren't for the newly acquired, deep analysis, skill, even with the relevant knowledge taught by Paglio, Chunrui wouldn't be able to crack these mysteries. The loss of spirit overdraft for the past few days was finally worth it. These inscriptions should be deeply engraved on the ground. Because of the long years, trees and plants had grown on them, but their power and function hadn't weakened at all. Instead, these plants could be used to produce more peculiar effects. This was the most mysterious ancient inscription of the dragons. There was insufficient light at night in the jungle. In some places, even the moonlight couldn't pass through. Chunrui carefully followed the detection method taught by Paglio and finally succeeded in testing the safety point in the inscription. He passed through another big tree. However, this was just the beginning. Chunrui could feel that there were still many hidden inscriptions in front. Coupled with the terrifying ghost dragon with unpredictable power, it could be said to be full of danger. Since it was Chunrui who discovered the mystery of the big tree, Athena didn't dare to move after being shouted. Chunrui carefully walked in front of her, bent down, and looked carefully. This is likely to have the power of expulsion. If you take a few more steps, I don't know where you will be teleported to in the jungle. But we must pass it. Give me your hand, I'll walk in front. Athena didn't hesitate to hold Chunrui's hand. When the two hands held together, both of them had a strange feeling in their hearts. Athena felt that her mind was a little blank for a while. After the blankness passed, it was a feeling that she had never experienced before. It was a little nervous and a little sweet. Although her face began to heat up again, she hoped to be held by him forever. When Chunrui first met Alice, they once held hands very intimately, but he was tricked by the little lowly. Athena's hand wasn't as smooth as Alice's, but her fingers and palms were slender and warmer. Although they were holding hands in this special situation, it was inevitable that he was a little distracted. However, his attention quickly shifted to the dragon inscription. When passing through the inscription of Banish, Chunrui and Athena both felt a strong repulsive force flowing through their bodies. It was a bit like stepping on stone blocks and crossing a river step by step. If they were not careful, they would be washed away by the river. After successfully passing through the inscription, Athena was completely convinced of Chunrui's ability. In her opinion, this was definitely the key effect of a great grandmaster's divine sense. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have been able to enter this place by herself. She really didn't know how many more miracles this human man could create. There was still danger ahead. Almost as if they had a tacit understanding, Chunrui didn't let go of her hand, and Athena didn't intend to take it back either. The two of them continued forward hand in hand. Chunrui consecutively passed through the range of effect of several inscriptions, and he felt a little more confident. If it weren't for the threat of the ghost dragon, he could easily treat it as the dragon inscription exam before going to the Silent Night wetland. At that moment, there was a faint red light not far ahead. The two of them carefully approached and saw that it was a plant that was about 1 meter tall. There were barbs on the branches, and the leaves were purple. There were a few red round fruits on it that were glowing faintly. Athena's red eyes flashed, and she was highly focused. She carefully recalled the description of the devil fruit in the ancient book and finally confirmed that this was the treasure that the demons dreamed of. There were 5 or 6 fruits on this plant, and they looked like they had just ripened. The value of these fruits was almost incalculable, with magic crystal coins for the demons who weren't from the royal family. In the history of the demons, there was a war between lords for the devil fruit. As long as they ate one, there was a great chance that they could break through the limit of higher demon in the future and reach Demon King, Great Demon King, or even higher. Athena suppressed the excitement in her heart and didn't act rashly. Instead, she carefully sensed the surrounding situation. Unexpectedly, the rumored ghost dragon that wanted to devour the devil fruit was nowhere to be seen. As she was about to step forward, her hand was suddenly grabbed by Chunrui. "I feel something is wrong. Don't rush. Do you know?" For the demons who aren't from the royal family, no one can resist the temptation of the devil fruit. I must get it. Athena gently pulled her hand out. If I don't seize the opportunity now, I'm afraid we'll all be in danger when the ghost dragon comes. After that, Athena carefully approached a few steps. After confirming that there was no danger, she tiptoed and leaped toward the devil fruit. Wait! When Athena just stepped forward, Chenrei suddenly remembered something. At this time, Athena just rose into the air to grab the devil fruit, but it was too late. Throw the sword out! Athena! Quick! Chenrei's shout startled Athena. Out of trust, she had already entered the great demon's battle form in the air. She gritted her teeth and threw the great sword toward the devil fruit. Bang! 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 With a series of explosions, the great sword was blown apart. Athena's figure was blown back by the aftermath of the explosion. Before she landed, she was caught by Chenrei. The impact made Chenrei take a few steps back, and he almost lost his balance. Athena in his arms returned to her human form. She was covered in blood, and there was a broken sword blade in her shoulder. Fortunately, the great sword detonated the power of the runes in advance. Otherwise, Athena's result was likely to be the same as the broken sword. Fortunately, the broken sword on the shoulder was partially blocked by the armor. Otherwise, her entire arm might be cut off. It was a blessing in misfortune. Athena's body trembled involuntarily. Her face looked particularly pale under the moonlight. It was obvious that she was seriously injured. Athena! Chenrei felt a burst of regret. Why didn't he judge that there was a problem with the devil fruit earlier? There must be an inscription there, and the meaning was mirror image and explosion. The devil fruit was just a mirror image used as a bait. The real purpose was to explode the trap. Athena only felt a burst of tearing pain all over her body. She almost didn't even have the strength to speak. She knew that if it wasn't for Chenrei's reminder just now, she would have died. Seeing the human's worried look, she regretted it. Sorry, I was too willful and didn't listen to your advice. If she wasn't too impatient, not only would she not be injured now, but her hand should still be in the warm grasp of this man. Why didn't she trust him? What's the point of saying this now? Let me help you bandage it first. Chenrei gently squatted down, took out a blanket from the space bracelet, put it on the ground, and then carefully put Athena on it. He gritted his teeth, pulled out the broken sword, opened the armor, sprinkled powder on the wound, bandaged it, and then exchanged a bottle of healing potion, pouring it into her mouth. Athena, I know the devil fruit is very important to you. It was my fault that I reacted too slowly just now and didn't notice the trap earlier. Don't worry, I will definitely help you get the fruit. You wait for me here, don't move. Don't go. Athena was shocked, showing a look of horror. It's too dangerous here. I don't want the devil fruit anymore. Let's leave, believe me. Remember not to go away. There are dangerous traps everywhere. When I come back, I want to see you here. Chenrei squeezed her hand, then stood up, carefully looked at the ground, quickly walked to the other side, and disappeared from Athena's sight in the blink of an eye. Athena's eyes were already red. For the first time in her life, she began to pray to the demon god wholeheartedly for a man other than her father. Chenrei had already speculated the rough location of the real fruit from the mirror image just now. Perhaps it sensed that the explosion trap was triggered. The terrible roar began to sound again, as if warning people not to approach. Chenrei felt that the sound was getting closer and closer. He knew that he was going in the right direction, but he was worried that he would be noticed by this powerful ghost dragon, so he was careful all the way and didn't dare to make too much noise. After a series of traps and bypassing the inscription of concealment and teleportation, finally, a relatively open pile of stones appeared in front of him. Under a pile of stones, there was a plant that was exactly the same as the mirror image. It was the devil fruit. However, the most eye-catching thing was not the devil fruit with a faint red light, but a huge figure beside the fruit. This was indeed a giant dragon. To be more precise, it was the skeleton of a giant dragon. However, the skeleton that was supposed to be dead was actually alive. Under the purple moonlight, the huge white skeleton was wrapped in a layer of strange luster. The two eyes that should have been empty were now glowing with a gloomy green light, making one's hair stand on end. Chenrei finally understood why this thing was called a ghost dragon. Although the ghost dragon seemed to be extremely powerful, it did not notice the existence of Chenrei. It roared into the sky again. Chenrei was already relatively close. He felt that the sound carried a kind of intimidating coercion, and those who heard it would be terrified. Chenrei only felt this kind of similar coercion from Piglio. However, this ghost dragon's coercion was much worse than the poison dragon's, but he was sure that it was dragon demeanor. Although the position of the ghost dragon at this time had not yet reached the effective range of analytical eyes, Chenrei did not dare to act rashly. The poison dragon once said that even a newborn baby dragon had the strength of a demon king. Judging from the power of the inscription just now, it was estimated to have the strength of a demon emperor. It was far from what he could contend with at this time. In this case, how can I get the devil fruit? Chenrei's mind turned and his eyes fell on the inscription behind him. The dragon inscription was not an intelligent program. Unless it was a special inscription like a specific bloodline, otherwise, as long as someone triggered it, it would produce the corresponding effect, even if it was the owner who set them up. Although Chenrei's power could not set up a powerful inscription alone, with the supersystem's current cracking of the dragon inscription, it was possible to create something that could induce and connect ready-made inscriptions. The best solution was to use this string of teleportation inscription to instantly transfer the ghost dragon to another place. Then he could quickly evacuate with Athena. The ghost dragon roared for a while, and it felt that there seemed to be no other disturbances. It immediately lowered its head, and the huge skull stopped above the devil fruit. The green light in the eyes of the ghost dragon began to move to its mouth. It slowly extended and fell on the devil fruit, just like a tongue. It looked particularly strange. At this moment, there was a sudden noise from the right. The green light trembled and retracted. At this time, the dragon head turned to the other side, giving people a feeling that its reaction was a little slow. The ghost dragon slowly walked a few steps in the direction of the noise and roared a few times. It was mixed with a powerful, dragon demeanor that was full of warning and intimidation. At this moment, a figure had appeared in front of the devil fruit like lightning. With a wave of his hand, all 6 fruits had disappeared. Chapter 84. The reaction of the ghost dragon seemed to be half a beat slower. He turned his head and saw the fruit disappeared. He roared and took heavy steps toward the figure. The figure who took the fruit seemed to be deterred by the dragon's demeanor. His figure paused, and his speed suddenly slowed down. He retreated step by step in horror. The one who snatched the devil fruit was naturally Chenrei. He knew that the strength gap between the two sides was too big. His speed definitely couldn't compare with the ghost dragon, so he didn't run away with all his strength. Instead, he pretended to be frightened and lured the ghost dragon into triggering the teleportation inscription trap. To Chenrei's surprise, the ghost dragon seemed to have seen through his plan. It actually didn't rush to chase after him, but it approached unhurriedly. The pair of wings that only had bones left flapped slowly, giving people a huge psychological pressure. The ghost dragon spoke in the common language of the demon realm. "Intruder! Hand over the fruit, and Sir Ghost Dragon can spare your life. Otherwise, your flesh and blood will become a delicacy in the mouth of the ghost dragon." Chenrei broke out in a cold sweat. "It seems that I can only trigger the teleportation inscription to escape before the ghost dragon attacks. If it doesn't work, I still have the teleportation skill of the Dark Will ring." The problem was that Athena was still nearby. It was very likely that she would be discovered by the ghost dragon. With Athena's current condition, she would definitely not be able to escape. Give up Athena and escape by myself? Anyway, the devil fruit is already in my hand. Should I give up the partner who is willing to take the risk to accompany me to Mountain Shillong? Facing the approaching ghost dragon, Chenrui had made a decision in an instant. He stretched out his palm and opened his 5 fingers, preparing to use Aurora Shot to anger the ghost dragon. The powerful dragon's demeanor was getting closer. "Damn guy, Sir Ghost Dragon will give you one last chance." Chenrui didn't believe this kind of meaningless threat at all. If he really handed it over, he would probably die immediately. But the strange thing was that this ghost dragon had been threatening and didn't really make a move. Just as Chenrui planned to desperately lure the ghost dragon away, the data displayed by analytical eyes changed his intention. Slime, comprehensive assessment D, physique unknown, strength unknown, spirit unknown, agility unknown. Slime? Not the ghost dragon? And D level? Just a higher demon? What's with that dragon aura? Chenrui was emboldened, and his star power instantly condensed. Aurora Shot! The huge white ball of light whistled and hit the spectral dragon. The spectral dragon's huge body was pushed back by the impact of the Aurora Shot, and some of its bones kept falling. It finally stabilized its body with great difficulty, and even one of its wings was missing. This was the first time that Chenrui had used Aurora Shot after he had been promoted to Star Leader. He felt that the star power consumed was much less than when he was a star collector. He did not feel as if his energy was drained instantly. The Aurora Shot verified that the behemoth in front of him was indeed a paper tiger. Chenrui made up his mind and soared into the sky to catch up with this spectral dragon. He exerted his combat power to the fullest. After being abused by Paglio so many times, he finally earned some interest from a dragon. However, it felt like he was whipping a corpse. The spectral dragon's movements were slow, and it could not fight back under Chenrui's attack. However, it did not seem to feel pain, and it was still roaring. "Bastard! Sir Spectral Dragon's power is already recovering. If you don't escape now, be prepared to shatter even your bones." Chenrui did not show mercy at all, and his attacks became more and more fierce. He already knew in his heart, the so-called spectral dragon is simply this, slime, bluffing. It's a fox pretending to be a tiger, and it actually deceived all the demonic beasts in the jungle. No wonder the spectral dragon has always been bluffing, and there was no real terrifying attack. It was just puzzling that the dragon inscription and dragon demeanor were genuine. At this time, the green light in the eyes of the spectral dragon gradually dimmed. Chenrui noticed that the green light was actually moving secretly, and the body of the spectral dragon gradually became sluggish and stiff with the fading of the green light. In the end, it was completely motionless, as if it was really just a pile of lifeless bones. The display of analytical eyes was still there. Chenrui's heart moved, and he immediately found a pile of faintly wriggling things on the ground. He stepped on it fiercely. This thing was slippery. It squeezed out from his foot and jumped high with a sudden bounce. It instantly became several times bigger, like a huge pocket. It covered the sky and wanted to swallow him. Chenrui's palm instantly emitted a metal-like light. A stream of light waved past, and the pocket was split into 2. Then, his palm slashed quickly and slashed the strange slime into several pieces. The strange thing was that these fragments actually did not die. They quickly wriggled toward Chenrui, wanting to wrap him up and swallow him again. Chenrui's mind moved, and he shouted, "Destructive aura blow!" At this moment, all the fragments flashed with a high-speed brilliance, like moving runes. Upon closer inspection, it was actually countless sharp forces that were cutting at high speed. In the blink of an eye, the fragments had already been cut into countless particles, falling to the ground one after another. It was Chenrui's first time using this kind of group attack, destructive aura blow. The effect was very dazzling, and the power was also very impressive, but the lethality felt inferior to Aura Blade's single target attack. Besides, it consumed a lot of power, which was several times that of Aura Blade. It was suitable for dealing with multiple enemies. Ouch! Subtle sounds came at the same time, as if thousands of people were speaking at the same time. After suffering a killer move like destructive aura blow, this strange slime was still not destroyed. Immortal body? Chenrui frowned. Sure enough, countless particles converged into one and became the original thing. You hurt me so much! I will make you pay the price! After this thing recovered, it opened its mouth again to swallow. Shinrei opened his hand, and the second aurora shot was ejected, which just rushed into the mouth of that thing. The huge light ball blasted it straight into the sky, and it fell down after a long time. Under the white light of aurora shot, Shinrei found that this thing was transparent, like some kind of rubber. After aurora shot hit it, it didn't burst, but scattered into countless white lights, filling the whole body of this thing, and vein-like patterns appeared. Shinrei was a little breathless. After launching the last aurora shot, his star power was running out. He had already used all his skills. If he still couldn't kill the opponent, he could only run away with the devil fruit. Aurora shot still couldn't kill this thing, but it caused a lot of damage. The destructive aura didn't disappear for a while. It scattered to various parts, causing it to be paralyzed on the ground and lose the ability to move for a while. Shinrei's mind turned quickly. He didn't run away, but he stepped forward quickly and stepped on it again. How dare you! How dare you deal with me like this? That thing was still very stubborn. I'm the real partner of the dragons, Shinrei retorted righteously. Just a slime, how dare you pretend to be a dragon's? I will completely destroy you now. How do you know Dodo is a slime? Don't kill Dodo! This guy didn't expect Shinrei to be the real deal, and he easily exposed his identity, so he finally began to panic. In fact, Shinrei's aurora shot twice a day had been used up. He was just scaring this Dodo now. He asked, Why do you pretend to be a ghost dragon? Why do you create a beast tide? Answer. Humph. Dodo won't tell you. As soon as he finished his words, he saw Shinrei's 5 fingers that were just hanging down suddenly opened. It was like a terrifying attack posture, so he immediately changed his words. Spare my life, I will tell you everything. Sir, please let go of your foot first. Shinrei let go of his foot. This guy took advantage of the aurora shot's remaining force and his body gradually disappeared and immediately bounced to the ground. He jumped high and fled to the side while shouting, You dare to mess with me, Sir Dodo! Wait and see how I will! Before he finished his ruthless words, he felt sparks splashing in front of him. After a series of explosions, Sir Dodo was split into a few pieces and fell to the ground with a dirty face. It turned out that it just triggered the trigger inscription that Shinrei had previously set. Fortunately, it was only the explosion inscription that was triggered. If it was the teleportation inscription in another direction, Sir Dodo was likely to have successfully escaped now. However, Dodo's physique was very strange. The explosion inscription actually couldn't kill him, and the speed of combination was also much faster. Relatively speaking, aurora shot did more damage to him. No wonder he was so afraid. Then, I have to kill you immediately! Shinrei appeared in front of Dodo. His aura was strong, and he looked like he was going to go all out. Even if I die, Dodo gritted his teeth and said. When he saw Shinrei's open 5 fingers, his voice instantly became extremely flattering. Sir, the humblest servant, Dodo, is willing to solve all your questions. Sir Dodo changed his face too quickly. He could be called a model of submissive with might. I won't believe you anymore, Shinrei said deliberately. When Dodo saw that the situation was not right, he opened his mouth and a scroll condensed with strange power appeared. Master, Dodo is willing to sign a master-servant contract. Please don't kill me. It wasn't the first time Shinrei signed a master-servant contract. He could see that this contract was real, so he signed it immediately. Most people could only carry 1 contract. Now, Shinrei actually had 4 contracts on him, 3 master-servant contracts, 1 symbiotic contract, and maybe he could sign more. After signing the master-servant contract, Shinrei naturally didn't make things difficult for Dodo anymore. He let go of his foot. This guy's D-level strength was fine, but the key was his immortal body. He could even drive the dragon bones to emit dragon's demeanor. He was indeed not simple. Dodo's flattened body gradually expanded and returned to the size of a washbasin, showing its true appearance. Its appearance was weird. It had no limbs. Its entire body was a face with big eyes, a small nose, and no teeth in its mouth. It was a bit like a translucent onion. Its movement relied on the elasticity of its body to jump on the ground like a spring. Honorable Master! Although Dodo had no limbs, its facial expressions were quite rich. It showed a flattering look. Dodo's body can absorb a certain degree of magic and normal damage. Even if it is split into countless pieces by a sharp blade, it can regenerate. However, Master's attack almost made Dodo's body completely collapse. Your power is too powerful and too evil. In the endless flattery, Chunrei seemed to see an onion version of Sli or Didi. However, Dodo's characteristics also made him secretly shocked. This guy isn't afraid of physical and magic attacks, and he can regenerate. What kind of monster is he? Chapter 85. Since the master-servant agreement had been signed, Dodo confessed everything. As shown by analytical eyes, Dodo was a slime. Chunrei had heard of powerful races such as fallen dragons, evil-eye tyrant, and elemental king in the demon realm. He had also heard of famous demonic beasts such as wyverns and nightmare beasts. However, no one had mentioned the word slime in front of him. The reason was very simple. It was too weak, so weak that it could be ignored. Slime was a low-level creature at the bottom of the demonic beast food chain. Its only ability was to transform into various scary shapes to scare away powerful enemies. Slime didn't have much attack power. It could only survive by swallowing plant nutrients. However, everything had its weakness. Even those powerful carnivorous plants were afraid of its swallowing ability. Dodo was originally just an ordinary slime with a simple mind. Many years ago, he couldn't remember the exact time, it swallowed a few devil fruits by chance, and its intelligence was greatly improved. At that moment, a powerful dragon came to the black rainforest. The dragon was seriously injured and seemed to be escaping from some enemy. It desperately carved a series of dragon inscriptions to hide. Finally, it came to the stone pile where Dodo was hiding, but it was too weak to walk anymore. Facing the highest demonic beast at the top of the pyramid, Dodo was so scared that he peed himself. He had been curling up in the stone crack and didn't dare to move. He barely survived by sucking the dragon's blood flowing from the stone crack. Not sure how many days had passed, the dragon finally died due to its heavy injuries. Dodo only then dared to climb out. Not sure if it was because of the devil fruit or the dragon's blood, Dodo actually had an extra interest in meat other than plants. After boldly eating another piece of dragon meat, it couldn't be stopped. Under Dodo's slow and meticulous work, the entire dragon was left with only the skeleton. During the process, it almost exploded several times due to the strength, just like when it swallowed dragon blood for the first time. In the end, the slime still survived with a strong desire to survive. No one could ever think that a lowly slime actually swallowed the entire dragon's flesh and blood. Dodo's strength greatly increased after getting the dragon's flesh and blood. It further mutated, and its transformation ability was greatly enhanced. After a series of fights and adventures, the slime, who already had considerable wisdom and strength, finally cunningly chose to pretend to be a dragon. It stretched its body to wrap the entire dragon's skeleton and controlled these bones to move. It looked like the resurrection of the dragon, so it got the name Ghost Dragon. However, in order to prevent being exposed, Master Ghost Dragon never left this place where the devil fruit grew. Dodo relied on the identity of the ghost dragon to scare away those opponents who came to snatch the fruits. He enjoyed many devil fruits alone, and his body further mutated. He became the first slime in history to reach the strength of higher demon. He also became the overlord of the black rainforest. When Dodo swallowed the fruit, he had to leave the dragon body and digest it for a long time, so he couldn't maintain the appearance of the ghost dragon. Therefore, he released dragon's demeanor to create a beast hide to avoid being seen through. Chunrei then understood that the ghost dragon, and dragon inscription were actually like this. Dodo being able to emit dragon's demeanor was probably related to devouring the flesh and blood of the giant dragon and the mutation of the devil fruit. However, according to Dodo, dragon's demeanor had to be accumulated for a long time before it could be used. It was best to cooperate with the dragon's skeleton to exert greater power. The beast tide this time exhausted the accumulated dragon's demeanor. It would take at least 3 days before it could barely be used for about 10 minutes. In order to please the new master, Dodo offered the 3 things left by the dragon: a doll, a bead, and a magic map. The doll was made of an unknown metal. It was about the size of a palm and was very delicate. The bead was slightly smaller than a fist and emitted a faint blue light. It was obviously not an ordinary item at first glance. As for the map, it was an incomplete corner. The hint was quite limited, so he didn't know what mystery it had. Chinrui didn't study it carefully, and put the 3 things into the storage warehouse. He walked to the dragon's skeleton, and felt that these bones seemed to contain a special energy. He tried using aura conversion, but there was no hint. This skeleton was very big. Unless it was cut one by one, otherwise it couldn't even fit in the space bracelet. However, this wasn't a problem for the storage warehouse, so it was easily kept in. As for the devil fruit, Chinrui had an idea. There were 6 fruits in total. They were about the size of lychee. The outer shell was hard and the texture was delicate and complex. Although the fruit was precious, the most precious thing was the fruit tree. If Dodo left, he didn't know if it would be destroyed by demonic beasts. Oh yeah! Galaxy Garden. I wonder if the plants outside the super system can be planted? Calculating the time, the pivotal fairy seed should have matured now. As soon as he thought of this, Chinrui immediately entered the Galaxy Garden in the super system. The Galaxy Garden had changed compared to before. The entire Galaxy Garden was shrouded in a layer of faint mist. From a distance, it faintly emitted a colorful light. The green seedling in the circular soil in the center had grown into a 1-meter-tall small tree. The material was like gold but not wood. It was dotted with emerald-like green leaves. The natural exquisiteness didn't seem to be done at all. The source of the mist in the Galaxy Garden was this small tree. The wonderful thing was that the mist at the top of the small tree was faintly a graceful woman. Her beautiful facial features could be faintly seen. The misty figure was like a fairy from heaven. No wonder it was called Pivotal Fairy Seed. The woman was actually like a living thing. When she saw Chinrui, she faintly saluted. Chinrui clearly knew that this was the design of the super system, but he was still amazed. Now that the Pivotal Fairy Seed is mature, how do I plant other things? Plow the soil? Watering? Fertilizing? As his mind moved, the light screen at the entrance of the garden had appeared. An icon of a female plant appeared in the center of the garden's plan. Pivotal Fairy, Level 1. Upgrade Condition 1, Evolution Level 3 stars. Condition 2, 1000 units of Level 2 Refined Dust. Refined dust? Could the powder be further refined in some way? However, it could only be upgraded when he reached the next level at least. It was useless to think too much. Chinrui put his mind on the remaining blanks of the plan. Sure enough, there was a list prompt that he could choose to plant. There was only one aura fruit tree. Aura fruit tree seed, 500 auras per seed. Do you want to exchange and plant it? There was also a quantity prompt next to it. When Chinrui chose 5 seeds, the prompt reached the purchase limit of the current evolution level. After confirming the purchase, the 5 seeds icons automatically appeared on the plan. The prompt appeared again. Do you want to start the Pivotal Fairy's trusteeship mode? Units of dust must be provided. If the dust is exhausted, the trusteeship mode will automatically stop, and the plants will stop growing. It seemed that the trusteeship mode was a good thing. He only needed the dust, and he didn't need to care about the rest. Chinrui exchanged the best vine stones and magic materials not long ago. There was a total of 50,000 dust. He immediately chose to confirm. The dust automatically disappeared from the storage warehouse, and the corresponding data appeared on the light screen of the Galaxy Garden. The strange thing was that as soon as he activated the trusteeship mode, the pivotal fairy immediately flew to the corresponding position in the galaxy garden and began to dance around. The seeds that were originally invisible on the ground began to germinate at a speed visible to the naked eye. They only stopped after sprouting, and the pivotal fairy flew back to the center. The seedling prompt was, Level 1 Aura Fruit Tree. Maturity period, 7 days. The fruit will automatically wither after being picked. If you want to continue planting, you need to buy seeds again. Daily consumption of dust is 2 units. Current state, immature. I don't know how much aura the fruit can provide, but it consumes very little dust. I'll come back after 7 days. At present, I need to think about how to get the devil fruit tree in. Chenrei's heart moved. He squatted down and touched the fruit tree gently. He thought about the galaxy garden in his mind, and a prompt appeared. Unknown plant. Transplant requires 10,000 auras. Do you want to transplant? 10,000 was not cheap, but with the huge value of the devil fruit that could trigger the war between lords, it was worth 100,000. Wisps of strange mist appeared on Chenrei's hand, just like the one in the galaxy garden, enveloping the fruit tree. After a while, the fruit tree disappeared. Dodo, who had been drooling over the fruit, saw this scene, and the onion head's eyes suddenly protruded. In the galaxy garden, the devil fruit tree really appeared. Prompt unknown plant. Maturity period, 60 days. Can ripen repeatedly. Daily consumption of dust is 10 units. Current state, mature. 60 days? Not 600 years? Chenrei's heart was filled with ecstasy. I've made a fortune this time. Somewhere in the inscription circle, Athena had struggled to sit up from the blanket. Fortunately, the healing potion at the exchange office was very effective, and the physique of a great demon was extraordinary. Her serious injuries had recovered a lot, but she still had no fighting ability. The faint roar and noise from a distance made Athena want to find Chenrei and face the danger with him. She thought of his instructions before he left, and knew that this place was full of traps. She couldn't find the right way at all, so she was anxious. I will definitely help you get the fruit. The human's firm words still echoed in her ears. This is for me. I'm willing to face a dragon. It seems that there was a similar situation when I first met him. I wonder if he did it for me at that time? But this is no longer important. I just hope that he can turn misfortune into blessing like the Blue Lake. As for the damn devil fruit, I don't want it any more. Athena clenched her fists with the only strength she had. She never felt that she was so concerned about a man. If anything happens to him, even if she dies, she will die with the ghost dragon. The noise in front was even louder. There were words mixed in, but she couldn't hear it clearly. Then, it became silent again. There was no sound for a long time. Athena's heart suddenly tightened. She couldn't care about the severe pain all over her body. She gritted her teeth and supported herself to stand up. As she was about to take a step, a voice sounded in front. Athena, you didn't keep your promise again. You said to wait for me to come back. Chenrei! Athena was shocked. Her heart that had been hanging was instantly filled with surprise. Her body staggered a few steps and lost her strength to support herself. She was about to fall forward to the ground. Chenrei just walked out from a hidden tree. He saw it and quickly stepped forward to catch her. Not counting the previous serious injuries, it was the first time that Athena had such intimate contact with Chenrei since the last special training in the air. She only felt that this human had a masculine heat. His arms were warm and strong. Her whole body was a little soft for a moment. She only felt that her heart was thumping hard. Chenrei also felt this heartbeat from a certain intimate part. Seeing Athena's weak appearance, he despised himself for a while. He carefully helped her to sit on the ground. Athena carefully looked at Chenrei for a while. He was indeed safe and sound. She was finally completely relieved. Chenrei intended to give her a surprise. Athena, stretch out your hand like this and close your eyes. Athena closed her eyes as instructed. She felt that there was a pile of things in her palm. When she opened her eyes, she was stunned. Chapter 86. Devil Fruit! Athena could hardly believe her eyes. She blinked hard and looked again. It was really the devil fruit. This man once again created a miracle. Not only did he return unscathed from the ghost dragon's hands, but he also got the devil fruit. These are all for you. Chinray had already tried it. The devil fruit couldn't be converted by aura, and he didn't know if it had any effect on the human body. So, he might as well be generous for once. However, even if it could be converted, he had already made up his mind to leave half for Athena. Athena held 6 fruits that were priceless in the eyes of the demons. She looked at Chinray, who was smiling, and her eyes were a little red. At this moment, she had completely confirmed her thoughts. The shadow that was both brave and wise before facing the poison dragon, the shadow that was humorous and knowledgeable when talking, and the shadow that was wise when planning and calculating all overlapped in the smile just now. Compared with this smile, the devil fruit was really nothing. Thank you? Athena didn't say anything else. I remember when I said thank you not long ago, you drew your sword, Chinray said with a smile. Suddenly, he grabbed a shadow that was about to jump to Athena's palm. Dodo, this is Athena's fruit. Don't touch it. Athena looked at the translucent onion that appeared in Chinray's hand in surprise. She didn't expect that she didn't notice this thing in advance with her perception. The onion even made a flattering voice. Great master, Dodo only wants one, okay? Athena had recovered from a certain emotion and asked curiously. What is this? This is the true face of the ghost dragon. Chinray told her about Dodo. Of course, he hid the scene of his battle with the ghost dragon. He only said that he used the knowledge in the Grand Master's mind to change those magic traps and subdue the fake Sir Ghost Dragon. These were the confessions that Chinray and Dodo had discussed beforehand. Dodo nodded cooperatively, but his 2 big eyes were staring straight at the devil fruit in Athena's hand. The devil fruit is only effective for the first time. It's useless to eat the second one. Athena's face changed from horror to shock. Damn slime, tell me! How many devil fruits have you eaten? Humph! How dare you call Sir Dodo a damn slime? Even if I have to sacrifice my life. Before Dodo finished his lines, his head was knocked by Chinray. Say it quickly! Dear master, please wait. Let Dodo calculate. Seeing that his master spoke, Dodo had no choice but to recall. He used transformation to make 2 palms and began to calculate. Not long after, 2 more appeared. After a while, there were already 8 palms on Dodo's body, but he still couldn't count them. Chinray and Athena were sweating profusely, especially Athena. She felt like she was going crazy. How many devil fruits did this slime eat? This is a priceless treasure. Dodo counted for a long time and looked like he was about to cry. Master, Dodo can't remember clearly. It's probably 8 or 9 palms. Even though Athena had always been strong-willed, she almost fainted at that moment. 8 or 9 palms. Isn't that more than 40 times? According to the number of fruits on that fruit tree, it only bears 5 to 6 at a time. 40 times, isn't that? This isn't lala potato. It's a precious devil fruit that is enough to provoke a war. Chinray was also shocked. In his opinion, Dodo didn't eat the devil fruit, but a huge amount of magic crystal coins. In other words, it was a huge amount of aura. What's squandering? This is the real squandering. However, the devil fruit only matured once in a few hundred years. It seemed that the previous years had nothing to do with Chinray, who just transmigrated this year. Counting it, Dodo had lived for at least thousands of years. Chinray, I don't want to eat the devil fruit now. Athena regained her senses and said while gritting her teeth. The slime was overjoyed when he heard that. As he was about to ask his master for it, Athena's next sentence frightened him. I want to eat this slime. Chinray cooperated and added, Dodo has eaten so many devil fruits. If you eat it, it will probably be more useful than eating the devil fruit. I just happened to bring a lot of barbecue seasonings. I guarantee you will be satisfied. Seeing that even his master said so, the slime was scared out of his wits. He pleaded, "Beautiful and brave mistress, please don't eat your most loyal slave. Dodo's meat is hard and smelly. It doesn't taste good at all." The word mistress made Athena blush. She quickly glanced at Chinray, but the human didn't notice it at this time. He was just looking at Sir Dodo's performance with a funny face. Other than Royce, I wonder what will happen when Sir Dodo, Sir Slee and the old dwarf, Didi, meet one day? After Chinray beat the new servant, Dodo, he didn't scare it anymore. He said to Athena, "Your injury isn't light. We'll rest for a few days at the place where Dodo pretends to be the ghost dragon. There are many magic traps around there, and the demonic beasts usually don't dare to approach. It should be very safe. I'll bring the 2 wyverns over later." "Okay. The medicine you gave me is very useful. My injury recovered very quickly. You take these 5 devil fruits. I'll leave one for you. Also, this is for you. Keep it safe." Athena took out a diamond-shaped crystal from her space bracelet and gave it to Chinray. Chinray only felt that the crystal was cold. It exuded a special chill, so he asked curiously, "What is this?" "After my injury is healed, I'll eat the devil fruit." Athena lowered her head and didn't look directly at Chinray. "This fruit has a characteristic. The stronger the power, the greater the toxicity. Many people have been poisoned to death in history. Even the antidote can't do anything. If I can't withstand the toxicity of the fruit." Athena paused and said firmly, "You must not go to Mountain Shillong to die. Don't go back to the Dark Moon Estate either. Take the wyvern to the west and take this ice crystal to the capital of the Shadow Empire to find a woman named Delia. She owed me a big favor 3 years ago. With your ability and Delia's help, you should be able to stay in the Shadow Empire. Do you understand?" Chinray was shocked. He didn't expect Athena to arrange such an escape route for him. He felt that the cold crystal in his hand seemed to contain a burning intention. He suddenly became silent. "Athena, you'll be fine." "Chinray, you don't understand. The one who doesn't understand is you." Chinray raised his head and looked at Athena's ruby-like eyes. He took out a green bead. "Take this, do you remember it? This is the antidote given by the Blue Lake poison dragon." Athena took it and looked at it for a while. "It seems to be very spicy." Chinray nodded. "This is called Jade Pearl. It's the precious crystal of the poison dragon. It produces one every 200 years. Eating it can quickly recover from injuries and permanently enhance the body's resistance to poison." "Permanently enhance the body's ability?" Athena was taken aback. Why would the poison dragon use such a precious crystal as an antidote? "Because you, little princess, and Kia weren't poisoned at all." Chinray had kept this matter in his heart for a long time. He finally couldn't help but reveal it. "I'm sorry I haven't told you the truth, you bastard. You made me worry all the time." Athena pounced on him regardless of her injury. She pushed him to the ground and punched him fiercely. "Damn it! Bastard! Bastard!" When Dodo saw his master was attacked, he initially wanted to rush up to help, but the mistress, who wanted to eat him previously, was still in his mind. Besides, the situation between the mistress and master was a bit strange. It felt like when spring came, the female creature and the male creature were playing before they attracted each other. The action didn't look like it, but it felt right. "If I disturb them at this time, I'm afraid I'll really be roasted and eaten." The slime, who had gained considerable wisdom, finally wisely chose to turn a blind eye. It was like a transparent background object that said, "You can't see me." The slime's judgment was not unreasonable. Athena scolded very fiercely, but the hand that punched on Chinray was weak. Perhaps it could be understood that her injury was not light and she couldn't exert the power of higher demon, but it was true that thunder was louder than raindrops. It couldn't cause real harm even to an ordinary human's body. Athena's movements finally stopped. She lay on Chinray's body and panted. Suddenly she felt that this action was too ambiguous. Her heart was beating fiercely. She propped up her body with a blushing face and punched him fiercely. Then, she turned over and sat on the ground. This level of attack was just tickling for Chenrui, but he knew that this matter had always been a burden in Athena's heart. She even had the thought of fighting to the death with the poisoned dragon. He felt guilty in his heart. After being beaten, he got up and explained to her. After Athena heard Chenrui said that he signed a symbiotic contract with the poisoned dragon, she finally understood. With the relationship between the two at that time, plus the characteristics of the symbiotic contract, if it was Athena herself, she wouldn't reveal this life-threatening secret. Bastard! Why don't you keep hiding it? Athena's anger had almost dissipated. How many more things are you hiding from me? Actually, there are still a lot. Chenrui saw Athena's eyes widened again, and he sighed. Athena, if you believe me, give me a month. Don't ask anything now. After a month, I'll tell you a lot of things, but for this month, you have to listen to me, okay? Athena frowned slightly and asked, Do Princess Royal and Alice know about these things? Chenrui shook his head. Other than the guy with the symbiotic contract, only you know. Athena raised her eyebrows and her eyes flashed with brilliance, but she didn't say it in a good tone. Humph. That's what you said. Okay, don't be angry. The Jade Pearl's anti-poison ability isn't a lie. You can ride the wyvern safely not because of the medicine I gave you, but because of your own anti-poison effect. It shouldn't be a problem to deal with the devil fruit. Chenrui smiled and said, Let's find a place to rest now. You should heal your injuries first. Regardless of whether the Jade Pearl is useful or not, eat one more before eating the devil fruit. When you finish digesting the fruit's power, we'll set off for Mountain Shilong. Athena didn't throw a tantrum anymore. She gently stroked the Jade Pearl in her hand and nodded. Chenrui wasn't a fool. He more or less felt Athena's intention. He also had a good impression of Athena, but there wasn't much time left in the battle with Eryx. He should focus all his energy on dealing with this matter and not be distracted in other aspects. After this challenge, he would seriously solve the problem between the two single man and woman. Chapter 87. 2 days later, 2 wyverns flew up from the black rainforest. Athena on Kegu's body looked energetic as she had completely absorbed the effect of the devil fruit. This kind of precious fruit that could trigger a war was indeed worthy of its reputation. Athena's strength was originally at the early stage of higher demon, but she was promoted to the middle stage all of a sudden. This was just the surface effect. More importantly, the invisible potential index was greatly increased. In the future, her possibility of breaking through the bottleneck of higher demon and reaching Demon King was greatly increased. Even the further Great Demon King and Demon Emperor realm was no longer an untouchable fantasy. With Dodo's example, under Chenrui's strong insistence, Athena took another fruit. The result only made her strength more stable, but the small probability of additional abilities still didn't appear. However, this special ability wasn't necessarily immediate. It was likely to be obtained in the future training. As for Dodo's mutation, it was not only the effect of the devil fruit, but it was also likely related to devouring dragon meat. Chenrui also secretly ate a devil fruit, but his strength didn't grow at all. He only increased a little aura because of the toxicity, so it wasn't worth it. However, with the miraculous Galaxy Garden, he would be able to harvest again after 2 months. In the future, it wasn't impossible to learn to eat it as a snack like Dodo. In the past 2 days, he didn't waste any time. He spent all of it in the training ground. His 130,000 auras were only left with more than 90,000. Athena got his order and didn't disturb his sleep. With Dodo's protection, everything went smoothly, including Athena consuming the devil fruit. Just like the straw that broke the camel's back, 8 times gravity was really not comparable to the limit represented by 4 times gravity. Even if he broke through to the Mizar state, it was still difficult to walk without using any star power. He didn't know how much suffering he had suffered in the first 10 days. When the training ended, he saw Athena, who was sleeping like a quiet baby after consuming the devil fruit. He felt that there was more strength in his body. After hurriedly eating and resting, he once again threw himself into the self-torture training. Shinrui had taken 2 black potions, eternal power and eternal speed. At that time, the potency was not fully absorbed. Under this high-pressure training, the potency accumulated in his body finally came into play. Dodo had always been obsessed with the devil fruit, but since he tasted the barbecue made by Shinrui, he began to change his taste and became even more loyal to his master. Athena was still hanging on the devil fruit, but Shinrui told her that he had tried to hide it. Athena was then relieved. 2 wyverns set off from the black rainforest. It took them a day and a half to reach their destination, mountain range Shillong. In the undulating Shillong mountain range, there were many high mountains and deep valleys. The area was vast. If one kept going west, he could reach town Leia, which was at the border of the Dark Shadow Empire. Mountain Range Shillong was the largest mountain in the Mountain Range Shillong, but Mountain Shillong had been controlled by bandits. Today, the mining office was located at the foot of the remote mountain Lugang. When Shinrui and Athena landed on the 2 wyverns according to the magic map, the guards and miners at the entrance of the mining office were all shocked. Since the original mining office was occupied by bandits, the current mining office was actually a temporary simple stone house. Startled by the wyverns, a centaur who looked like a leader walked out of the stone house. He had a few hideous scars on his face and was holding a crutch. When he saw Athena jumping off the wyvern's back, his eyes gradually showed surprise. He greeted her and saluted. "You are Ms. Athena! Who are you?" Athena felt that the limping centaur was a bit familiar, but she couldn't remember his name for a moment. The centaur looked a little excited. "I'm Gade. I used to follow General George in the Warlock Fortress. Because I was injured in the conflict with the Bloody Empire, I was transferred here 4 years ago." Athena finally remembered and said in surprise, "I remember! You are the Death Hammer Gade. You even gave me an iron sword. It's rare that Miss still remembers me." Gade raised his powerless arm and disabled left leg and sighed. "Unfortunately, I'm no longer the Death Hammer. It's the general who sympathizes with his subordinates, so he let me come to the Dark Moon to take an idle position and retire. Let's not talk about this. I heard that Ms. Athena came to the Dark Moon City 3 years ago, but unfortunately, I couldn't get away from here. May I know why Miss came to the mine today? Didn't you receive the magic message from the Dark Moon City? Logically, the magic message should have been sent when Princess Royal officially appointed me." Athena looked puzzled. Gade shook his head and replied, "The communication tower here has been destroyed by the bandits long ago. It has been unable to be repaired." The magic message was actually equivalent to a wireless communication using the communication talisman. A special magic communication tower was needed to transmit the message in the middle. It was equivalent to the base station in Shinrui's previous world. If the communication tower was destroyed, the magic communication talisman within the range would be unusable. The magic tower of each line must be set up separately. Some were private and some were shared. For example, there was a dedicated magic communication tower from the capital to each estate. The base station, along the way, was also protected by a special person. "I see." Athena pointed at Shinrui. "This time, I'm ordered by Princess Jia to protect your new mining officer." This sentence made everyone's eyes fall on the human who they thought was Ms. Athena's follower. Although there was no news, the challenge of Master Aldous defeating the capital's genius had spread to every corner of the Dark Moon. Even a remote area like Mountain Shillong had heard of it. This should be the Grand Master's human apprentice, but how could a mere apprentice suddenly transform into everyone's boss without rhyme or reason? Shinrui was no longer the same as before. He was calm under all kinds of gazes. He took out a magic appointment certificate signed by Jia. While everyone was paying attention to him, Shinrui was also observing his soldiers. There were about a dozen guards. They were composed of centaurs and dark elves. There weren't many miners present. They were all imps and dark goblins. Most of the demons present had a common characteristic, which was that they looked dispirited and listless. Gade took the appointment certificate and looked at it. His brows gradually frowned. With his eyesight, he could naturally distinguish whether it was real or fake. The centaur glanced at Athena, and there was no doubt in his heart. He immediately bowed to Chinray and said, "Mining Office Guard Captain Gade greets Sir Mining Officer." The guards and miners were surprised to see Gade salute. It seemed that Princess Royal really appointed this weak human as the mining officer. Like many people, Gade disapproved of this appointment. How can a powerless human be qualified to lead everyone? However, he couldn't say much due to Athena. He made an inviting gesture. "Sir and Miss, please come inside to talk. Connor, go get something to eat. The rest of you, go do what you need to do." Chinray and Athena followed Gade into the stone house. The facilities in the stone house were very simple. There were only 2 stone tables and a few chairs. There was also a bed at the back. "I'm sorry, Mississippi. The conditions here are very difficult. There's nothing to entertain. Let's just eat something later." Gade asked the 2 to sit down and asked Athena, "Miss, when do you plan to return to Dark Moon City?" Athena shook her head. "I'm ordered by Princess Royal to protect Chinray here until his work ends or he is transferred." Gade was slightly shocked, then he nodded with a complicated expression. Chinray noticed it and pondered for a moment. He asked, "Gade, we just arrived here. Can you give a brief introduction of the situation here?" Gade hesitated for a moment and began to speak. Mountain Shillong was extremely rich in mineral resources. The mine had a long history, and it had always been the largest and most important resource in Dark Moon. After the Beelzebub royal family's turmoil in Dark Moon 400 years ago, the prosperous Dark Moon began to deteriorate. Many changes also occurred in the mine. The underground creatures that had been sealed suddenly broke the enchantment and occupied the lower level of the main pit. It was equivalent to controlling the largest mineral vein area, which greatly increased the difficulty of mining and risked one's life. More than a year ago, a powerful Red Devils group of bandits appeared. Not only did they rob and kill the caravan sent by Princess Royal Jia, but they also harassed the mine from time to time. They also sent a squad to occupy the main pit and several newly opened small mineral sources. They also killed the miners who went to mine. Now the miners could only defend against the bandits' attacks under the leadership of Gade, while mining some cheap open-air ores. Although the danger was reduced, the income and output were extremely low. Princess Royal once sent Sheriff Allen to eliminate the bandits because of the caravan, but they were defeated by the bandits twice. When Athena heard that the situation in the mine was so bad that it was much worse than what she learned from Jia, she frowned and said, "Why didn't you report to Dark Moon City? We have reported countless times." Gade sighed. "But even the army sent by Dark Moon City failed. What else can we do? If it weren't for Miss coming today, I would have thought that Princess Royal Highness had given up on us." Chinray knew that the direct supervisor of the mine was the financial officer, Joseph. Therefore, it was reasonable for the limited information to reach Jia's ears. He immediately asked another key question. "What happened to the previous mining officer?" The previous mining officer was Tim from the Seifel family. Gade had a high evaluation of Sir Tim. His words faintly revealed his contempt for Chinray. After Tim came to the mine, he made a series of rectification measures and was quite prestigious. At that time, the main disaster of the mine was the underground creatures. When Tim brought a group of people to the main pit to investigate the situation, everyone suddenly disappeared. Even their bodies couldn't be found. They were probably killed by demonic beasts. Chinray calculated the time. When Tim was there, Jia hadn't sent a caravan to the west yet, so there were only sporadic bandits at most. When a caravan was sent out, a powerful bandit group correspondingly appeared. It was obviously targeted. After cutting off the westbound trade route, they shifted the target of control to the mine. It seemed that they wanted to strangle the Dark Moon's neck step by step until they completely stopped breathing. The reason why they let Gade and the others live wasn't because the bandits were merciful. It was because they didn't want to attract more of Jiao's attention until the last moment. Once a certain time came, Chunrui could imagine that all the masterminds would attack at the same time. Even if Jia had great talent, she could only wait for death. This was a rather thorough and vicious plan. I came here this time because of a mission given by Master Aldous. Chunrui changed his mind and stated the most important purpose of this trip. Master is now experimenting with a strange potion. He needs the crystal powder from the waste ores. Can you take me to have a look? Waste ores? Crystal powder? Gade frowned and thought for a while before he reacted. You're talking about the thing attached to the iron ore. That crystal is very troublesome. It's difficult to remove it, let alone turning it into powder. Besides, this kind of waste ores with crystals can only be found in the main pit of Mountain Shillong. It is now under the control of the bandits. Chunrui didn't give up and asked again. Where are the previous waste ores? Gade replied. The waste ores are piled up in the waste ores room. The waste ores room is in a corner on the upper level of the main pit. Now the output is too little. There were a few people who stole the waste ores and transported them back to the city. Later, they were discovered by the bandits and were killed. Chunrui frowned. He heard Zack mention this before, but he didn't expect the actual situation to be worse. Every piece of waste ores converted in the Dark Moon City's blacksmith shop was stained with the blood of the miners. Chapter 88. Athena said angrily. Damn it! Gade, we must find a way to eliminate those bandits. Miss, don't be impulsive. Gade shook his head. There are more than 200 bandits in Mountain Shillong. The leader is a great demon named Barnacle, one of the 2 deputy leaders of the Red Devils. He's at the peak of Higher Demon, and he has 3 higher demons under him. They are powerful, and we are no match for them. Besides, this is only a small part of the Red Devil's strength. It is said that the strength of the leader of the bandits is unfathomable. It is likely that he has surpassed the level of Higher Demon. Miss, listen to my advice. Hurry back to Dark Moon City. Mountain Shillong is too dangerous. No, I have to complete the mission given by Princess Royal, otherwise I will never go back. Athena's attitude was very firm. In fact, she requested Jia for this trip. Chunrui fell into deep thought after listening to the strength of the Red Devils. The strength of this bandit group is quite terrifying. There are 4 higher demons in Mountain Shillong now. Even if Eren didn't have any tricks in his previous 2 annihilations, he was still no match for them. Athena was currently in the middle stage of Higher Demon. Chunrui was probably equivalent to the early stage of Higher Demon. Dodo's strength was D level, Higher Demon. His specific level was unknown, but he didn't have any special attack methods. He could only resist with his immortal body. 3 higher demons against 4 higher demons seemed to be slightly inferior, but in fact, it couldn't be calculated like that. Barnacle was already at the peak of Higher Demon. He could defeat everyone on Chunrui's side alone, so he couldn't fight against them. However, the biggest purpose of Chunrui's trip wasn't to deal with the bandits, but the waste ores that had been accumulated for hundreds of years, which was a huge amount of aura. In any case, he should explore the situation first. At this time, a dark elf came in. It was the deputy captain, Connor, who went to get food. He brought 2 bowls of lala potato-like food, a big dry cake and a few fruits. Athena frowned. Do you usually eat this? I'm sorry, Miss Athena. Gade looked embarrassed. Now that the conditions are getting worse, this is the best food here. Many miners only have 1 meal a day, Connor said. Those bandits controlled the nearby water source and prey. If it weren't for Captain's arrangements and leadership, even if we weren't killed, we would have starved to death. Only then did Athena and Chunrui understand why everyone looked so weak. It turned out that they couldn't even guarantee food and clothing. You've misunderstood, Gade. Athena stood up and bowed slightly to Gade. I didn't expect you to guard this place for 4 years. I should pay my respects to you. Gade hurriedly got up and returned the salute. Chunrui took out all the remaining prey from the space bracelet and said, Gade, ask someone to clean these preys, then make a few big pots. Later, call everyone over and let's drink some soup together. Gade looked surprised and quickly asked Connor to bring a few praise down to take care of it. The way he looked at Chinrui finally had a better impression. Soon, the fire was lit and a few huge iron pots were set up. Chinrui started to stew the soup personally and added some seasonings. The climate of Mountain Shillong was cold. The steaming pots and the long-lost meat fragrance made the nearby demons drool. If they weren't afraid of Gade's prestige, they would have come to snatch it long ago. Connor gathered almost all the miners. There were about 400 to 500 people. Most of them were imps and goblins. There were also a few dark elves and centaurs. Almost everyone looked at the few pots next to the new mining officer with expectations. Before distributing the meat soup, Chinrui began the first concentrated lecture of the mining officer. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Chinrui. I was originally the secretary of Princess Royal Highness. I was recommended by Financial Officer Joseph to be the mining officer recently. Chinrui said the script that he had thought about for a long time. Everyone may have heard that I have another identity. I'm the only apprentice of Master Aldas. Yes, I'm a weak human, but I've learned the true teachings of the Master's poison. For example, can you give me your pickaxe? Chinrui came to the nearest dark goblin. The goblin didn't expect a human to look for him. He subconsciously held the pickaxe tightly and didn't dare to let go. Chinrui didn't bother to be polite. He grabbed it and raised it high. With a wave of his hand, the hard pickaxe began to decay quickly and fell apart like rotten wood. This is one of the dozens of poison techniques taught by the master. Chinrui showed a vicious expression while using the tiger skin as a banner. If an enemy falls into my hands, I'm happy to have one more poison experiment subject. This move obviously scared many people at the scene. The noisy scene suddenly quieted down. Talents with special talents such as potioneers and mechanics, although their combat power wasn't strong, they were also respected by people, especially potioneers. The story of Aldas killing the capital's potioneering genius, Sandro, with a fart was not only spread to the Dark Moon or the Fallen Angel Empire, but also to the other two empires. Although this human was just an apprentice, he was the master's only disciple. Judging from the move just now, it didn't seem like he was bragging when he said he learned the true teachings of the master. Maybe he even learned some of Alda's strongest trick. Thinking of this, many demons in the front row stepped back at the same time. Especially the goblin who was used as a demonstration, he was trembling in fear. This was the effect that Chinrui wanted. After coming to the demon realm for so long, he had already figured out some tricks. This world worshipped the strong. If he blindly coaxed them, it would only make these people more difficult to control. Only by using a big stick to intimidate them, then giving a carrot was the most effective method. Everyone, don't worry. My poison only targets the enemy. It won't cause any harm to my own people. After Chinrui showed his power, he immediately threw out a carrot. I know the environment of the mine is bad, so I don't have many requirements for the mining. There is only one thing. During my tenure as the mining officer, you must obey my orders. As for food, I brought 2 powerful wyverns. This is Ms. Athena, the Dark Moon's top female swordsman, and also the top beast-taming master. We will use the wyverns to get prey and strive to let everyone drink hot meat soup every 2 days. Are you willing? Everyone shouted one after another. Yes. Chinrui's mind was clear that the voice was 100% for the meat soup. Although the meat soup was still not enough, for the miners who hadn't tasted meat for a long time, even a sip was a rare enjoyment. Everyone had a preliminary impression in their hearts. Although this new officer is a human, he has a terrifying poison skill. If they are disobedient, they will be miserable. If they are obedient, they will have meat to eat and soup to drink. Next was the most popular meal time. Gade was worthy of being a soldier. Under his command, the distribution of the meat soup was carried out in an orderly manner. After the meal, Chinrui kept the dark goblin alone. The goblin thought of his hesitation when he offered the pickaxe, and he thought of a terrifying poison. He was so scared that he almost collapsed to the ground. Chinrui didn't say anything. He just ordered him to go to the opposite hill to help set up the tent. Athena didn't want to live in the stone house that Gade gave her, nor did she want the tent that Chinrei gave her. She used some existing materials to build a simple tent on the hillside. Now that the two wyverns were at the top of the hill, and behind the hilltop was a cliff, Athena chose this location to better protect Chinrei. Although Athena's position on the hillside made it inconvenient for Chinrei to move, the people at the foot of the hill couldn't come up either. In a sense, it could play a role as a cover. Seeing the mining officer easily pull the two ferocious wyverns to the side and tie them up, the goblin was even more in awe. Fortunately, the mining officer didn't use him as a test subject for the poison. He only asked him about the situation of the mine. According to the description of the goblin, the main pit was divided into upper and lower levels. After thousands of years of transformation and expansion, it was equivalent to an underground passage that extended in all directions. When the ore on the upper level was almost mined, a deeper lower pit was opened up. In the previous normal period, ore could be transported through cable cars and elevators, which was very convenient. However, one day, when the miners were carrying out deep excavation and survey, they accidentally discovered that there was an underground world below with various powerful creatures. At that time, the Dark Moon Lord was a demon emperor powerhouse. He rushed over after hearing the news and killed a group of underground creatures that gushed out. He also set up a barrier with several powerhouses to prohibit the creatures from entering and exiting. Originally, it had been safe and sound for thousands of years. It was unknown whether it was because the seal had failed, but 400 years ago, the underground creatures broke out of the seal and occupied the lower main vein area of the main pit. In desperation, the mining officer at that time could only destroy the large elevators and send people to guard the entrance. However, in this way, the output of ore was greatly reduced. Many people secretly took simple personal rope ladders and risked their lives to mine at the lower level. As a result, many lives were lost. However, this year, the bandits were rampant. Even some small mines that were discovered later were controlled, causing many harm to the miners. The original thousands of miners either fled or died, leaving only a few hundred people. Chinrei asked the goblin to draw a map and rewarded him with the big dry biscuit. The goblin didn't expect such a good thing, so he left with joy. Goblins were skillful. Although the map was simple, it was accurate and easy to understand. The location of the main pit was at the back mountain of Mountain Shillong, and the waste ore's room was somewhere on the upper level of the main pit. As the night grew darker, Chinrei began to act. His cover was the dragon inscription. He only knew some basic inscriptions now. For example, the rebound that Piglio used at the Blue Lake that day belonged to the top inscription. Not only was it difficult, but it also had various restrictions. One of them was that it needed the support of his own blood, and it could only be maintained for a certain period of time. Chinrei's current power level was too low. He could barely even use basic inscriptions, and it took a long time just to engrave inscriptions. However, when the people at the foot of the mountain saw it, they just thought he was dealing with the tent or something. He used 3 types of inscriptions: hide, mute, and mirror. With the strength of a higher demon and the experience from deep analysis, the inscriptions that he engraved with great effort could only last for a few hours after they were activated. It couldn't be helped. The demon realm was also a world that depended on one's father. As soon as the dragons were born, they had the strength of a demon king. However, Chinrei didn't need the power to hurt the enemy. He only needed to create a certain illusion. From the appearance now, the top of the mountain was still a tent with 2 wyverns. In fact, one of the wyverns was already in the air of Mountain Shillong. Along with it was the servant Dodo who had been hiding in the wyvern's baggage. With the help of the map and magic compass, Chinrei quickly found the location of Mountain Shillong. Mountain Shillong deserved to be the largest mountain in the Shillong mountain range. The huge area really surprised him. The wyverns flew for a while and finally found a faint light below. It should be the camp of the Red Devils. Chapter 89. On the back mountainside of Mountain Shillong, there were several large stone houses. They were the original Dark Moon's mining office, including the miners' residential area at the foot of the mountain. All of them were now occupied by bandits. The map showed that the location of the mining office was the only way to enter the main pit. Due to the presence of Higher Demon, Chinrui didn't dare to ride the wyvern straight to the entrance of the main pit. He carefully chose a remote corner to land and instructed Dodo and Mingda to hide. Then, he changed into a cloak and carefully sneaked away. The dark clouds in the sky tonight were thick, and the brilliance of the two moons seemed a lot dimmer. Chinrui activated analytical eyes and converged his breath along the way. He gradually approached the flashing residential area at the foot of the mountain. There were 4 guards at the gate, and there were noises coming from inside. Analytical eyes showed that the 4 guards at the gate were E and F level. With Chinrui's strength and speed, plus the cover of the night, he bypassed the guards without alerting them. The bandits inside didn't expect that someone would dare to approach here. They were drinking and chatting. That mining officer really came. I heard that he is a powerless human. What a joke! Don't underestimate that human. He seems to know poison. He is Alda's apprentice. You can't mess with that master. Just shoot him from a distance. Don't give him a chance to use poison. He is dead anyway. By the way, this time there seems to be an exquisite beauty. That's the daughter of the Empire's first general. She is now a higher demon. With your little strength, she can easily break your penis with a gentle kick. As soon as this was said, there was a burst of laughter. So what if he is a higher demon? Our deputy leader, Sir Barnacle, is at the peak of higher demon. However, Sir Barnacle thinks that this place is too boring, so he went to Town Leia to have fun with Sir Leader. It's just that Sir Culia is unlucky. Sir Barnacle is about to chase him back to accompany us. Haha! Damn, who wants to stay in this cold and poor place? I can't even see a woman. It's much more comfortable to go back to the estate. Let's just kill all those damn miners, then we don't have to suffer like this. A centaur took a big gulp of wine and said with dissatisfaction. The dark elf beside him shook his head. You drank too much again. Didn't our leader say it before? It's not the right time yet. It's better to maintain the current situation. Don't attract more attention from US City. When the time is right, we can kill as many people as we want. That's true, but I don't know how long I have to wait. The centaur looked at the stone house on the mountainside in awe, and there was a hint of envy in his eyes. Sir Yagas is still comfortable. With Sir Sully's company, I naturally don't want to go to Town Leia. Who said I don't want to go? The key is that Madame Sully is stronger than Sir Yagas. They are both in the early stage of higher demon, but Madame Sully is stronger than Sir Yagas. Otherwise, that Sir would have gone to Town Leia to have fun. There was another burst of laughter that was deliberately suppressed. These words fell into the ears of Chinrui, who was eavesdropping at the side, and he quickly thought about it. The conversation of these thieves revealed a lot of information. First, there should be a stronghold of the Red Devils in Town Leia at the border of the Shadow Empire. The leader and main force should be there. Second, the names of the 4 higher demons of the bandits in the mine were Barnacle, Culia, Sully and Yagas. Barnacle had already gone to Town Leia. Culia went earlier, but he should be back soon. Sully and Yagas were both in the early stage of higher demon. They had an ambiguous relationship, and they were currently staying behind. Third, as expected, the bandits were going to attack him, the new mining officer. Fourth, the Red Devils had a premeditated plan to keep the miners alive and not kill them. These were just the information on the surface. Chinrui heard more information. Athena and he came to the mine for less than half a day, and the bandits already knew. Obviously, there was a spy among the miners. Athena had just advanced to higher demon, and it was an impromptu decision to follow him to Mountain Shilong. The bandits actually knew her strength immediately. It showed that the Dark Moon and the bandits must have an additional magic communication tower. Combined with some information from Jia and Royce, it could basically be confirmed that the Red Spirit Estate was secretly manipulating these bandits. It was even likely that it was the military power of the Red Spirit. The miners' residential area was very large. It was more than enough for more than 200 bandits to live in. Since he was not familiar with the terrain, and there were 2 higher demons on the hillside, Chen Rui didn't intend to alert them. His biggest purpose for coming here today was the waste ore's room in the main pit. Chen Rui thought for a while and quietly retreated back to Mingda. He ordered in his consciousness. Mingda flapped its wings and flew up. It made a big circle, avoided the mining office where the 2 higher demons lived, and landed on the top of the main pit from the rear. The top of the mountain was 200 meters high from the entrance of the main pit below. Even if Chen Rui had an extraordinary physique now, he would be seriously injured if he jumped down like this even if he didn't die. There were several guards below, so he couldn't land directly with the wyvern. If there was a magic like feather fall, he could land lightly. Unfortunately, Chen Rui wasn't a magician, but he had an assistant that could stretch and transform at will. This guy had the ability to wrap his whole body around the skeleton of a giant dragon. It was naturally a piece of cake for him to act as a mobile rope. The main pit was a flat concave entrance. In front of it was the track of the mining cable car, but it had been abandoned for a long time. There were still guards on the top of the mountain, but they were all around a fire. Chen Rui landed silently. Dodo also returned to an onion head and landed on his shoulder. Chen Rui looked back at the guards who were warming themselves. Sure enough, no one could detect him. He secretly thought in his heart, and sneaked toward the entrance of the main pit. The main pit was right in front. It was a huge entrance. There was a faint light from the magic lampstone inside. At that moment, a sense of crisis suddenly surged in Chen Rui's heart. His hair stood up as if he was being stared at by something terrifying. Dodo's reaction was faster. He bounced up from his master's shoulder and ran away, but he was caught by Chen Rui. This onion head that bullied the weak and feared the strong was quite good at escaping. There was a roar in front. At the same time, a cluster of light rapidly expanded in front of them and whistled toward them. Chen Rui had now completely absorbed the potion of eternal speed, and his speed had reached a considerable level. With a sudden bounce, he dodged the ball of light in front of him. This ball of light was something like a fireball, and it contained a terrifying power. When it hit the ground, it actually exploded. It was a bit like the flame demon Rika's flame explosion, but it was much more powerful. The solid cable car rails on the ground were affected by this power, and actually quickly melted and deformed. Damn it! Chen Rui calculated everything, but he didn't expect that there was such a terrifying demonic beast guarding at the entrance of the main pit. Judging from the power of the cluster of light, it should have the strength of higher demon. The worst thing was that it had alerted the guards. Those demons who were warming themselves by the fire rushed toward this side. Dodo, you go and deal with it. I'll help you right away. If you dare to run away, don't even think about eating barbecue anymore. As Chen Rui said that, he unjustly threw the onion head to the approximate position of the demonic beast, and he faced the few demons by himself. Chen Rui knew that it was a critical moment, so he was merciless. In the blink of an eye, the few guards were all killed, but Dodo's cry for help also came over. Chen Rui hurried forward. Under the hazy moonlight, it was just a buffalo-sized demonic beast that was biting Dodo. It was a huge canine with a ferocious appearance and a dark body. It actually had 3 heads. The terrifying fireball just now was spat out from its mouth. Analytical eyes showed, race, Cerberus. Comprehensive strength assessment, D. Cerberus. Chen Rui had heard of this terrifying demonic beast before. It was extremely powerful, and its sharp teeth and claws were enough to tear steel. Some mutated species could also launch long-range attacks of ice or fire. Obviously, this was a mutated Cerberus. Enemy! Tear! Die! Through the skill of analytical eyes, he could hear the meaning of this guy's roar. It was just repeating these few words, and its consciousness was filled with killing and violence. Trying to communicate with it was useless. Dodo was also a higher demon. Although he once pretended to be a ghost dragon, to abuse others, he was still a slime of the lowest level after all. He could still show off Sir Dodo's demeanor if he encountered a weak one. Now that he encountered such a powerful demonic beast with terrifying combat talent, how would Sir Dodo dare to risk his life? Although he recovered after being torn into pieces by the Cerberus, Dodo was still too scared to fight back. Master, Dodo doesn't want to barbecue anymore. Come and save Dodo! At this time, the people at the foot of the mountain also heard the roar of the Cerberus, and they began to shout. Chunrui was very anxious, and he had the idea of ending the battle quickly. His palms formed a knife shape, emitting a faint light. When the Cerberus saw Chunrui rushing over, one of its heads opened its mouth and spat out a fireball again. Chunrui hurriedly rolled and barely dodged it. The broken stones of the fireball hit his back, and it was burning in pain. At this time, he was already close to the feet of the Cerberus. Before he attacked, the three hideous heads opened their mouths to bite him. Chunrui didn't expect the Cerberus's reaction to be so fast. He quickly dodged. The three heads cooperated and took turns to attack. With Chunrui's speed, it was actually difficult for him to dodge. Dodo! Entangle it! Hurry! Chunrui yelled. As he was distracted, a piece of his black robe was torn by the Cerberus's claws. The part that was scratched felt a burning pain. As the Cerberus was about to pursue, its body suddenly tightened. It was tightly wrapped by something, and it couldn't move for a while. Meanwhile, the black-robed man in front of it had leaped high and struck down from the sky. The powerful demonic beast instinct of the Cerberus made it feel that the black-robed man's attack was extremely dangerous. It immediately struggled with all its strength and broke the restraint forcefully. At this time, Chunrui's aura blade had already slashed down. The Cerberus just broke free from Dodo's entanglement, but it only had time to move sideways. Blood splashed. In a sad cry, one of its heads was chopped off, and it became a two-headed Cerberus. As Chunrui was trying to get rid of this annoying demonic beast in one go, he suddenly felt something. He lowered his body, and a sharp weapon broke through the air and brushed past his head. The sharp weapon spun for half a circle and flew back. Chunrui was caught off guard. He barely dodged it, and there was a bloody wound on his waist. The sharp wind fell back into the hands of a male great demon. It turned out to be a cross-shaped flying scythe. Race, Great Demon. Comprehensive Strength Assessment, D. Analytical eyes prompted the appearance of higher demon. And there is more than one. It must be Sully and Yagas. They came so fast. Chapter 90. Who are you? How dare you come here? The male great demon who should be Yagas shouted. A female voice sounded beside him. Stop talking to him. Can't you see that Sir Barnacle's pet, Nagirara, is already injured like this? We must catch him and tear him into pieces. As soon as the words were spoken, the two great demons' bodies were ignited with demonic fire almost at the same time. Chunrui knew that a fierce battle was inevitable today. Yaga's weapon was somewhat similar to a boomerang. This place was too spacious, which was disadvantageous to him. He immediately changed his mind and ran toward the main pit. Yagas and Sully were unwilling to give up, so they followed closely. Dodo was faster. He knew that his jumping speed was slow, so he simply jumped onto Chunrui's shoulder and hitchhiked. The hellhound's fierceness was triggered due to the injury, so it roared and chased after them. In the blink of an eye, a few figures had already entered the main pit. After thousands of years of construction, especially the upper layer that had been excavated, the space of the main pit seemed to be very large. It was like a spider web-like complex underground maze. Magic lights were set up at intervals to illuminate. Chunrui's purpose of entering the main pit was to use the terrain to fight, but the three-headed hellhound's sense of smell was too sensitive, and its speed was fast. It followed closely, so it was quite troublesome. Dodo, three-headed hellhound, it's up to you now. If I die, you won't survive either. This sentence was said in his consciousness through analytical eyes. When the slime heard this sentence clearly, he felt his body lightened. He was thrown backward by his unscrupulous master, and hit the three-headed hellhound right in the middle. The hellhound smelled the scent of one of its two enemies. Its movement suddenly slowed down, and it began to bite Dodo. This action happened in a split second. Sully and Yagas, who were behind, didn't stop and followed closely behind Shinrei. Dodo finally bounced off the hellhound's bite and stuck to the wall. He was terrified. Although he still held a grudge against his master, the sentence just now made the slime, who wanted to turn around and run away, change his mind. Yes, if this two-headed big guy and the two bad guys fight against his master together, his master is likely to die. Master is dead, so is Sir Dodo. Anya had sized up the three-headed hellhound that was roaring and confronting below. To be precise, it was a two-headed hound that had been downgraded. It seemed that this guy's strength was much weaker than before. Bullying the kind and fearing the evil had always been Sir Dodo's virtue. His courage immediately increased. He spread his body and wrapped it towards the two-headed hellhound. Escaping was not Shinrei's real intention. Otherwise, he would have rushed down the mountain instead of escaping into the main pit, or he could have activated the teleportation skill of Dark Will. Now that things had come to this, and Cerberus was seriously injured, this matter could no longer be resolved. Even if he escaped, the two great demons would suspect the mining office. After all, today was the day he and Athena arrived. Everything was too coincidental. Besides, his biggest purpose of coming to Mountain Shilong was Aura. Now that Barnacle happened to go to Town Leia, he might as well kill these two early higher demon enemies, then get all the Aura in the waste ore's room. Anyway, the mining officer was originally Joseph's conspiracy. If he had no other choice, he would at most dismiss the miners and let everyone run away. Then, he could return to Dark Moon City to report. Once he understood the real situation of the mine, Jiao would no longer sit by and watch. However, it was not easy to deal with these two enemies. If it was only Yagas or Sully alone, even with teleportation, it shouldn't be too difficult to escape with Shinrei's current speed. However, there were two opponents, and their cooperation was extremely tacit. He only escaped for a while, and he was already in danger. Just as Shinrei avoided Sully who teleported over, he was faced with two rapid air-piercing sounds. In a hurry, he only had time to lean back to avoid Yaga's flying scythe, and Sully's attack came again. Shinrei couldn't avoid it. At this time, the effective aura blade in his hand hadn't disappeared yet, so he slashed at Sully. Sully had witnessed him cutting off the head of Cerberus with one palm, so she knew how terrifying this secret technique was. She didn't dare to take it head-on. Two odd-shaped short blades appeared in her hands, and she faced it. This weapon was about 1 meter long. The holding part was in the center, and both ends were three-pronged blades. It looked like a double-headed lotus in the demon realm. Shinrei wasn't sure if the aura blade made of flesh and blood could compete with the blade. He turned his wrist and slashed at the back of the short blade. There were actually sparks splashing out. Sully felt an extremely sharp aura coming from the short blade. It actually penetrated through the blade and landed on her shoulder. As if she was slashed by a sharp blade, a stream of blood suddenly appeared. Fortunately, this short blade was a special magic weapon, so most of the power had been blocked. Otherwise, her entire arm might have been cut off. Sully wasn't Paglio, so she would never hold back her strength. Shinrei also felt a strong counterforce, and the back of his hand was faintly numb. After all, Aura Blade wasn't omnipotent. Sully was secretly shocked, and she didn't dare to be careless. She bounced and avoided the second blow of Aura Blade. Shinrei was waiting to pursue, but the sharp wind sounded again behind him. The timing was quite accurate, so he couldn't avoid it anymore. He immediately yelled and turned around. Without looking back, Aura Blade slashed out like lightning, and the flying scythe was immediately split into two. Yagas was taken aback, but he didn't panic. Two flying scythes appeared in his hands, and Sully's double blades were in front of him. Both sides formed a confrontation. Sully was a standard great demon female with curved horns, long hair, red eyes, and a hot figure. Yagas looked a little ugly, and there was a long scar on the tip of his nose. With the light of the magic lamp in the main pit, Yagas carefully looked at the mysterious black-robed man and frowned. This guy shouldn't be Athena from the Dark Moon. Otherwise, how could he block our joint attack? No matter who he is, let's capture him first. The demonic fire on Sully's body was burning, and she reminded again. Be careful of his secret technique. Chinrui thought quickly. Aura Blade only has 10 minutes, and it's almost time. If I use destructive Aura Slash, with the strength of these two enemies, they will at most be slightly injured, but my star power will be greatly reduced. It's not worth it. In the same way, an ultimate move like Aurora Shot must be used at the right time. Piglio once said that a battle was like a battle. Various factors such as tactics, timing, and power distribution must be considered. Sully didn't give him too much time to think. She had already launched a swift and violent attack. Although she was a woman, she was extremely crazy when fighting. Her double-edged melee attack was especially powerful. Although the main pit was wide, it was not as spacious as the outside after all. Yagasa's flying scythe was restricted to a certain extent. Besides, Sully and Chinrui were too close. Long-range attacks were easy to accidentally injure, so he immediately put away his flying scythe and attacked at close range. Chinrui had already vaguely learned about the relationship between Yagas and Sully from the bandits, and the battle between the two was actually very tacit. Sully's strength was similar to Chinrui's, and Yagas was slightly inferior. Under the joint attack, although Chinrui had a certain advantage in speed, he was still at an absolute disadvantage. Aura Blade's skill had expired, and it could only be used again after an hour. Chinrui was careless, and his ribs were stabbed by Sully again. Before he could catch his breath, Yagasa's powerful punch had arrived. Chinrui reached out his hand to block and flew backward with the force. He avoided Sully's fatal blow to his heart. He knew that he would be more and more passive if he continued to fight like this, so he turned his body and turned to another tunnel. This kind of fighting and retreating at the same time made the advantage of Sully and Yagasa's joint attack suddenly disappear. They secretly scolded the opponent for being cunning. The strength of the three people was not much different. It was impossible for Chinrui to launch a surprise attack to defeat them one by one, so they were in a stalemate for a while. Sully and Yagas chased for a while, and they seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding. They gradually forced Chinrui in one direction. It was Chinrui's first time coming to the main pit, so he was not familiar with the terrain. When he realized the intention of the two, he was already forced into a dead end. Behind him was an extremely spacious hall, and there seemed to be no way out. Yagas waved his hands continuously, and 4 to 5 flying scythes flew toward Chinrui at the same time. Sully followed closely, preparing for a sneak attack. Chinrui knew that it was useless to fight recklessly, so he had to retreat to the hall. A huge magic lamp was hanging on the top of the hall, emitting a bright light. The surrounding walls were inlaid with wall lamps regularly, which was much clearer than the light outside. After Chinrui retreated into the hall, he found that the space inside was much larger than he imagined. Initially, it was as big as a football field. There was a huge pit in the hall, and it was full of stones of different sizes. Chinrui's heart moved. This hall is a bit like the waste ores room described by the goblin. I finally found this place. The biggest purpose of Chinrui's visit today was this place. Unfortunately, the timing wasn't right. The two enemies in front of him wouldn't give him a chance. A heavy sound came from the door. Sully pushed the 2 huge stone doors closed, and 2 more flying scythes appeared in Yaga's hands. The demonic fire flickered quickly, and a cruel smile appeared on their faces at the same time. Of course, Chinrui didn't want to be trapped. While retreating, he quickly looked at the surrounding terrain. Sully's figure bounced and rushed toward Chinrui. It was another storm-like close-range attack. Suddenly, Sully made a feint and leaped far away with a few somersaults. The demonic fire on Yaga's body suddenly blazed, and he shouted loudly, "1,000 blades!" In an instant, the sky was filled with whistling sounds. For a moment, countless flying scythes appeared and heavily surrounded Shenrui. Shenrui was taken aback and was in a dilemma. However, the flying scythes technique was very ingenious. Some came first, and some came later. It was as if there were several opponents with different rhythms. Yaga's speed of retracting and releasing the flying scythes was extremely fast, and the flying scythes that flew back were launched out by him with ingenious techniques. The flying scythes around Shenrui were endless, and it seemed extremely dangerous. In the blink of an eye, there were 2 more wounds on his body. The flying scythes were very sharp. Even with the characteristic of astral form, the blood that oozed out couldn't be stopped for a while. At the critical moment, Shenrui lifted his cloak and shook his hand. The cloak turned into a flexible rope whip. He swung it left and right, whipping the flying scythes away. However, the rope whip was also slowly becoming shorter. Shenrui danced and retreated at the same time. Suddenly, he disappeared. Yagas lost his target, and he was taken aback. It turned out that Shenrui had fallen into the huge pit, and it happened to be the blind spot of this direction. The flying scythes that were spinning were caught by Yagas one by one. 1,000 blades was a little exaggerated. There were about 100 of them. Coupled with the repeated spinning and launching, it was indeed a killer move that was difficult to deal with. Sully saw that Yagas missed, and she was about to step forward. Shenrui in the pit had already quickly retreated into the pit. Suddenly, he leaped high, and there were already a few flying scythes in his hands. However, his target wasn't Sully who was chasing behind him, but the biggest magic lamp in the air. However, darts weren't that fun, especially this kind of thing with spinning. It looked easy, but when it was used, it was too deceitful. The few darts that were thrown out were all off target. The most accurate one actually flew back when it was about to hit the magic lamp. If it weren't for this critical moment, Shenrui would be embarrassed for himself. When he landed, he was almost dismembered by Sully. Liuli obviously wanted to repeat the same trick to force the opponent into the shooting range of Yagas's flying scythes. Of course, Shenrui wouldn't be fooled by this. Yagas wasn't stupid enough to wait outside. He had already appeared in the huge pit, and the demonic fire began to flicker again. It was the prelude of the ultimate move, 1,000 blades. At this moment, Shenrui leaped again with a square stone in his hand. He threw it fiercely, and it finally hit the huge lamp accurately. Sure enough, a brick was the best. It could be thrown from afar and hit from close range. It was suitable for both young and old. The principle of the magic lamp was to use the principle of the magic circle to stimulate special materials, such as the most commonly used lamp stone, to emit light. After being smashed by this stone, the magic circle was also destroyed. The lamp stone quickly extinguished. Except for the faint light on the distant wall, the center was already dark. Shenrui immediately hid in the dark. Only 2 great demons, one male and one female, had undulating flames on their bodies, which were particularly conspicuous. In the main pit, the roar and the sound of explosion from afar made the bandits who rushed to the entrance not dare to enter for a while. Someone spoke. "We can't get close when Nagirala is hunting. We'd better guard the entrance to prevent the enemy from escaping. Besides, it's too big inside. If we go in rashly, we'll become a burden to Miss Sully and the others." "I believe the sirs will solve it soon." This suggestion was approved by everyone. They lit the torches and magic lighting equipment and surrounded the entrance of the main pit. No one knew that the hellhound Nagirala was now very depressed, very depressed. This onion-like transparent guy could freely change its body characteristics, which was a bit like the lowest level of slime. However, where had they seen such a powerful slime? This enemy seemed to be vulnerable, but it couldn't be killed no matter how hard it tried. Whether it was biting or exploding fireball, even if it was broken into hundreds of pieces, it could still gather and restore into a complete onion. This was not the only annoying thing. It also had that shape-shifting skill. Just now, it accidentally turned into a rope and wrapped around my head. The flesh and blood on the wound actually disappeared quickly, as if it was swallowed by something. If I didn't get rid of it in time, I would definitely suffer a big loss. How can I kill this abominable onion head completely? Nagirala, who was seriously injured, stuck out its tongue and panted violently. Sure enough, the fragments on the ground gathered again. Just as Nagirala stared at the ground vigilantly, it didn't notice that a part of the transparent thing was quietly climbing to the top of the stone wall. Below it was the hellhound's head. Chapter 91. In the Waste Ore's room. Chinray's strategy was very effective. Now that the center was dark, Yaga's long-range attack lost its power, and the flames on their bodies became the target of the attack. Yagas reacted very quickly. He didn't even stay in the darkness. With a teleportation, he had already retreated to the door. However, Sully didn't move. She sneered, and the demonic fire on her body gradually extinguished, disappearing into the darkness. Humph, this idiot is overreaching himself. He actually dares to fight with Sully in the dark, Yaga said to himself. Although he still didn't put down the flying scythe in his hand, he was obviously confident in Sully. Chinray immediately realized where Yaga's confidence came from. Although it was pitch dark, Sully wasn't affected at all. Her movements seemed to be faster and more accurate, as if she was born for the darkness. Originally, Sully's attack was known for its strangeness. Now, with the cover of the darkness, it was even more silent and difficult to guard against. In just a few minutes, that ghostly figure made Chinray feel overwhelmed. He was stabbed several times. If the magic light wasn't extinguished, he could still deal with it, but now he felt like he was trapped in a trap of his own making. Chinray knew that he couldn't go on like this. Now that Yagas was far away and Sully was alone, he must seize the opportunity to kill one of them. Otherwise, he would definitely be the one to lose in the end. In Sully's eyes, as time went by, the enemy's reaction seemed to become slower because of the injury, and it became more difficult for him to determine her exact position. A slight change of airflow came from below the ribs again. This time, the enemy's reaction was obviously slower by half a beat. He was stabbed by the dagger and screamed. His palm formed a knife shape and slashed toward the direction of the attack. Sully didn't know if it was a bluff. Thinking of the horror of the previous secret skill, she didn't have time to pull out the dagger and quickly retreated. However, this enemy was just slashing aimlessly and seemed to be hysterical. Sully suddenly understood that the blow just now had seriously injured the opponent. She secretly sneered and made a feint to attract the opponent's attention. Then, she ghostly circled to his back and stabbed with all her strength. At this time, the enemy still didn't seem to notice. The female great demon's red lips slightly curled up, revealing a bloodthirsty smile. Yagas, who was outside, could tell that the screams and shouts weren't Sully's voice, so he was more certain in his heart. He shouted, "Sully, remember to keep him alive, but you have to remove all his limbs first." At the same time when Yagas spoke, Sully only felt a chill in her heart. Her attack that was bound to succeed suddenly stopped. The dagger in her hand only had time to stab 3 inches in. She looked down at her heart with an inconceivable expression on her face. Her heart was pierced by a double-headed dagger. It was her own weapon, and now it had pierced through her heart. The other end of the dagger was held in Chinray's hand. In Sully's eyes, in a split second, the enemy pulled out the dagger from under his ribs at an unimaginable speed and stabbed it back like lightning, hitting his heart. The calmness and accuracy of this strike was totally different from the previous sluggishness and madness. It turned out that this enemy had been able to accurately lock onto her movements all along. Just now, she was just baiting him. Sully shouted with the last of her strength. She wanted to die together with him, but Chinray had already pulled out the dagger from her heart first. Her remaining strength seemed to be drained, and she collapsed to the ground. "Sully!" Yagas finally realized that something was wrong. He shouted loudly while holding the flying scythe tightly. His body was brewing an explosive power, and he carefully approached. However, he didn't know that in the darkness, a hand had already opened its fingers and was aimed at him. Chinray was waiting for Yagas to approach with Aurora shot ready. Suddenly, a prompt came from analytical eyes. Before he could react, his body was already tightly gripped, and a red light suddenly shone. It turned out that Sully, who was dying underground, heard Yagas's call. She didn't know where she got the strength from, but she actually gripped him desperately. Yagas! Thousand Blade! The demonic fire on Sully's body completely exposed Chenrei to Yagas's sight. That was the flame that Sully used with her life. Chenrei couldn't break free from the restraint for a while, but his arm that was stretched forward still kept his palm open. Yagas quickly stepped forward and shouted. The sky was filled with whistling sounds, and he actually launched Thousand Blade without hesitation. A cold light flashed in Chenrei's eyes. A huge white light ball was ejected at high speed toward Yagas. Yagas didn't expect that his opponent still had such a killer move. Just as he was launching Thousand Blade with all his strength, he had no energy to teleport. The flying scythe that was thrown at the light ball in a panic was also swallowed instantly. He could only block with his arms and forcefully take on the attack while he was still weak after launching his ultimate move. However, he still couldn't take it. Now, Chenrei's strength was no longer comparable to the past. He was also a great demon in the early stage of higher demon. Yagas couldn't deflect Aurora shot like Mikas did previously. The demonic fire was so dim that it was almost completely swallowed by the white light. His body involuntarily retreated again and again, and his defense was gradually collapsing. Boom! Aurora's shot pushed Yagas and hit the wall at the back. The entire waste ore's room seemed to tremble. The white light finally disappeared, and a huge spherical dent appeared on the hard stone wall. Yagas's limp body had been deeply stuck in the wall. The biggest mystery of Thousand Blade was the endless cycle of attacks. Now that Yagas was knocked down, he naturally couldn't repeatedly launch an attack. Chenrei just launched Aurora's shot, so he couldn't dodge it. His shoulder was hit once, and there were a few scratches. Meanwhile, Sully, who was tightly hooked, became a bunker instead. Her back was embedded with 4 flying scythes, and her demonic fire was extinguished. She was already dead. Sir Culia will be back in 2 days. He will avenge me. Yagas's dying voice came from the wall in front. Before he finished speaking, he was already dead. A ring appeared on Chenrei's finger, and it was shining. It was the illumination ring, provided by Joseph. He gently pulled Sully's hand away and put her body on the ground. He pulled out the flying scythes on his shoulder, and the 4 flying scythes on Sully's back. Then, he slowly closed her eyes that were still open. Chenrei didn't know why he wanted to do such unnecessary things, but he was still shocked by Sully's action just now. In fact, the stab in her heart was already a fatal wound. She only used her last bit of vitality to make the choice of perishing together with him in order to knock him down and protect Yagas. If there was a choice, Chenrei didn't want to attack or even kill a woman, but unfortunately, he had no choice. In a battle, there was only the enemy and oneself. Only life and death. In contrast, Yagas released Thousand Blade without hesitation. He didn't even mention Sully's name before he died. He only said that Culia would take revenge on me, instead of us. Female Great Demon, in life, only love is difficult to die. Maybe there is no maybe. A pair of familiar and beautiful red pupils appeared in his mind for no reason. His body that was originally cold due to blood loss was filled with warmth again. Chenrei's injury this time was lighter than the battle with Mikas. The most serious injury was the one under the ribs that was used to lure the enemy, but his star power consumption was more serious. After drinking a bottle of healing potion, he began to look at the huge pit. Now that the magic lamp at the top had been shattered, countless layers of waste ores could be seen by the light of the illumination ring. Chenrei moved his mind and opened the storage warehouse, wanting to store these waste ores. As a result, the storage warehouse was full for the first time, and this was the Mizar warehouse that had been expanded. The ores in the huge pit were lowered by a few meters, but the bottom was still not seen. I don't know how deep this pit is. At this moment, the closed stone door of the waste ores room made a sound of being pushed. Chenrei immediately turned off the illumination ring. The door was pushed open. Under the illumination of the wall lamp, he didn't see anyone. After a long while, a familiar voice sounded. "Master, are you there?" It turned out to be Dodo. Shenrui opened the illumination ring and breathed a sigh of relief. "Dodo, are you okay?" When Dodo heard his voice, he quickly bounced toward the light, leaving a strange sound on the ground. When he came to Shenrui, his expression turned into a flattering smile. "Master! Dodo is so powerful. He swallowed the two-headed dog, but the bones weren't tasty, so he spat them out." Shenrui was stunned. He thought of the huge skeleton in the black rainforest, and his heart was a little scared. "How did you find this place? Dodo swallowed dog enemies before. I don't know why my nose became very sensitive. I can smell Master's scent." Dodo's face suddenly transformed into the shape of a dog's head. He sniffed the ground and showed off his ability with adequate body language. Shenrui was taken aback. In that case, Dodo has a chance to obtain the ability of the swallowed target. Is this the devil fruit's special ability? No wonder it can emit dragon demeanor. It seems that I picked up a great servant this time. The strongest slime in history may even become the strongest demonic beast in history. Dodo, well done! You'll have a share of the barbecue next time. When Dodo heard his master's praise, he proudly transformed two arms again. He put them on his waist and grinned exaggeratedly. Dodo was proud for a while, then he suddenly thought of something and said, "Master, there are a lot of people blocking the gate. Dodo doesn't dare to go out." This sentence exposed Dodo's timid nature again. The strongest demonic beast in history was just a fleeting cloud. The current strongest slime was still a slime. After killing Sully and Yagas this time, even the three-headed hellhound was swallowed by Dodo. I'm afraid it won't end well. Judging from Yagas's words, Kulia's strength was definitely above Sully and Yagas when he returned 2 days later. He was at least at the middle stage of higher demon. Time was tight now. On one hand, he had to speed up his training. On the other hand, he had to find a way to divert Kulia's attention so that he wouldn't contact the mining office too early. Several guards at the entrance of the main pit had been killed. Only the three-headed hellhound, Sully and Yagas were chasing after them. The other people were relatively weak. When they arrived, Shenrui and the others had already entered the main pit, so no one else heard or saw anything related. Dodo looked at his master curiously and pondered for a while. He actually looked at himself with a strange gaze. He suddenly had a bad feeling, then he heard his master said earnestly, "Dodo, it seems that it's time for you to resume your old profession.